Everything started with this woman standing over a guy, giving him crap, and basically calling him useless. She told him to hurry up and steal the curse from some dude named Lord Arthur, and she wanted it done right now. The poor guy on the ground, who we later found out was called Crash Valheim, said he was already at his limit, but honestly, he had no choice. So he just went for it, and used his power to steal the curse anyway. Now, Crash might have been born into the baddest, strongest family line in the world, but for him, that power was only a curse. The funny thing was, his special move let him steal curses from other people. Out of all the heroes fighting against the world's corruption, this guy was the one who stood out and became one of the blue sky generation. After he finished doing his thing, our boy dropped to his knees and started coughing up blood. Meanwhile, everyone else ran over to Arthur, shouting that he should drink some potions and try to recover. This man just ignored them for a second and stared up at the sky, where, get this, a monster was riding a freaking horse and shooting actual meteors like it was nothing. The dude looked totally fine, not even a scratch on him. Arthur then started asking if they were really going to keep fighting this blue death knight with only this tiny squad. He gave up, dropped his sword, and told his crew that they were out of there. Basically, he said it was impossible and that they needed to leave. Crash couldn't believe it and asked what the hell Arthur was doing. Was he actually planning to run away now? This hero guy told him that everything needed to end right here and now. He said the hope of the world was already gone, and now only ruin was left. Our hero shot back, asking if Arthur was going to give up after all the stuff they went through to get him here. He reminded him that so many people had died just for this. But Arthur just laughed like he was losing his mind, and our poor MC said it was all because he'd been fooling around with women too much. Crash thought that was ridiculous. Then, another woman butted in, Sigrun Ephania, the third princess of the Ephania Empire. She told our boy to shut up and said this dude had done nothing but his best. She called Crash a useless piece of trash who could only steal from others. That one hit hard, but our MC didn't let it slide. He told her it was funny coming from her, and he wanted to know why she could talk down to him when he literally saved their lives. He said they wouldn't have made it this far without him, and if they forgot, he was happy to give them a reminder. He started with Abella, the Red Witch from the Magic Tower. Crash explained that she once begged him to steal her curse since she couldn't use magic if she lost her voice, and now he was still suffering from that curse. But even after that, when he just wanted some painkillers, she attacked him. Plus, she never stopped looking down on him. Then there was Mary Diana. She stood right beside Abella and was known as the strongest spear in the Empire, an Imperial Knight. Our boy called her brainless, always charging into danger and getting hit with every curse there was, then running to him to get her pain taken away. On top of that, Sigrun, the princess, called him a dog when he gave up his own eye for her. Totally insane. Apparently, he lost his eye because of a curse. Back in their academy days, Sigrun targeted him just because he came from the Starland Kingdom. She bullied him, made fun of his family name, Valheim, and embarrassed him in front of everyone. Even though he had no talent for fighting, he stuck around just to fix his eye. This bitch just kept roasting him, even when they had to work together to save the world as part of the Blue Sky Group. All because he has no talent for fighting. He ended up cleaning up all their messes, always being the guy who had to wipe up after them. So, he wondered, what was the point of all that? Honestly, Crash didn't even care about the rest. The only one he wanted to follow until the end was Arthur, who was supposed to be the hero. He said he'd stick by this hero guy's side, no matter what. So, why was Arthur giving up now? Our MC wanted to know. This man finally said he'd spill the truth. He told Crash the world was finished, so he planned to reset everything. Our hero was like, what did that even mean? Arthur revealed that this wasn't the first time he'd seen the end of the world, because his own power was something called regression. Crash's jaw nearly hit the floor. This dude explained that now, since he had a technique for keeping his memories, he could go back and start over every time, and all his memories would come with him. But it wasn't just for him anymore. Our boy realized that if all four of them could go back with their memories, their next chance of stopping the apocalypse was insanely high. Arthur said that was the plan. He wanted to go back to the beginning with these three. Crash, of course, asked if he was being left out. This man just grinned and told him straight he wasn't needed. Arthur admitted that our hero's skill, Black Hood, was useful and could steal even the worst curses. But there was no need to bring someone whose body and mind were already broken. Why bother when they could just grab a fresh version of him next time? Crash realized this wasn't the first time this had happened. Arthur had always planned to use him and then throw him away. This guy said not to worry about it, since they'd meet again in the next world, and the one after that too. At this point, our MC just stood there in shock, watching them start to run away. He called out for them to wait, but inside, he always knew this would happen. They never saw him as a real friend or comrade, not even Arthur. He yelled at this hero dude to take him with them, but Arthur just laughed. Crash felt his life fading away from all the curses, and he was about to die before the world even finished breaking down. But this dude, he refused to let it end like that. He revealed that his power could actually steal more than just curses, it could steal skills too. He'd never tried it on this man because Arthur's skill was on another level, but now, it was definitely worth a shot. Our poor boy was half dead, his body falling apart, but he still stretched out his hand and used his Black Hood power. And who was he aiming at? None other than Arthur himself. Suddenly, this freaky demon hand shot out of Crash's body and zoomed right for Arthur. Our MC could actually feel it working, which was honestly insane. So he told this hero guy to wait up as he yanked the regression skill out of him. Man, Arthur looked at him like he couldn't believe our boy hadn't given up yet. Crash explained that he knew this man had lived through 1,000,000 apocalypses, and every single time, as soon as our hero became useless, Arthur just chucked him away and left him behind in some dying world. This time, he said, it would be this dude's turn to get left behind. Arthur stared at him and asked if Crash had finally lost his mind. But our boy just grinned and pointed up towards the Death Knight, saying maybe he had, and besides, Arthur himself already said this world was finished anyway. This man's face totally changed, and he tried to use his power, but guess what? It didn't work. That's when he realized what had happened, and bro, he actually started tearing up right there. Our hero ended up dying first, thanks to that nasty attack, but he left off saying he'd be the one to save the next world. So, the next thing you know, our MC slowly opened his eyes. He just lay there for a second, then stuck his hand out toward the ceiling and suddenly screamed. This time, his eyes looked super lively, way different from the last time we saw him. He glanced around and realized, wait, this was the house he lived in as a kid. That meant his crazy move had actually worked. He'd pulled off the skill steal and got sent back. Now, he started thinking about this thing called world corrosion. Basically, it's when the world gets attacked by another dimension. Stuff in the environment changes, and even worse, these monsters called corrosion species show up and try to wreck everything. The ones that look human, they called those world eaters, and everyone agreed that those things were basically calamities. The people who fought against all that were called Blue Sky, yeah, the same group his old buddies were in, and Crash himself. But all he ever did was take on everyone else's curses, and in the end, those so-called teammates stabbed him in the back. Not exactly a happy childhood. He sat there thinking, man, it was just freezing cold a moment ago. But now it was so hot he was sweating in his bedroom. If he was really back at Green Pine Manor, the place he got dumped at as a kid, then stealing Arthur's skill had gone off without a hitch. He started laughing like a maniac because, let's be real, who could believe something so crazy actually worked? But then he paused, realizing he had no idea how he'd even managed to steal it. People always acted like his Black Hood skill had no limits, but that was total garbage. The truth was, he couldn't just steal anything he wanted. Every time he tried, a special lock would show up, and he had to break it open. The lock's strength depended on how much the owner valued their stuff. Like, if some guy loved a random stone more than his own life, Crash would have to pull off something insane just to steal it. And with special skills, like regression, the lock should have been impossible to break. So how the hell did he snatch it? He remembered that when he stole from Arthur, there wasn't even a lock. That could only mean one thing. Arthur actually wanted to ditch his power. This man was supposed to be this big-shot hero king, but maybe all those failed worlds finally broke him. Sometimes, our MC remembered, he looked dead inside, like he was just working a boring job. If he had to watch the world end over and over, anyone would go nuts. Maybe for Arthur, the so-called regression power was really just another curse. Crash realized that maybe this hero guy planned to send the others back with their memories, so he could ditch the whole hero thing and be left behind. So, after our boy stole the skill, the Arthur he knew must have died fighting that crazy meteor apocalypse. No more do-overs for that guy. Crash figured he'd basically done this man a favor, even if Arthur probably hated him for it. He started laughing again, thinking about how everyone always treated him like garbage, as if being the cursed sponge was the easiest job ever. They never cared about the dude cleaning up everyone's mess in the shadows, but honestly, he figured it was what they deserved. He called Arthur a piece of trash, though deep down he knew how heavy that burden really was. A while later, Crash shuffled out to the hallway, realizing just how tiny he was now. Before stepping out, he checked himself in a mirror and saw a 10-year-old kid staring back. He was super short, but at least he had a bit of muscle from swinging a sword every day, just trying to survive in the messed-up Valheim family. If this was really Green Pine Manor, that meant he had already gotten through the proof ceremony. That was the event where you showed off which god you made a contract with and what power you got. In his family, everyone expected greatness, but our MC? He was the one dud. No talent, no god, nothing. He got tossed out and sent to this manor where all the losers went. And now, he was the only one who actually knew just how screwed the world was going to get. The apocalypse wasn't just coming. It was something even the entire Blue Sky group couldn't stop. Dude, talk about a rough restart for our unlucky hero. So, Crash was standing there, kind of shaking, thinking about what he had to do now. He wondered if he could actually handle this huge mission, because, bro, the world ending was a little out of his league. But he told himself to stop complaining. It didn't matter if he thought he could do it or not. He had to at least try. Because if the apocalypse happened again, he was toast too. There was really no choice for him now. If he wanted to keep living, he had to stop the end of the world. That was the only road forward. But before he could even finish that dramatic mental pep talk, the butler showed up. Our MC said the guy's name was Ariad. He wanted to know what Crash was doing hanging around this part of the manor. Our boy hit him with this weird honesty, admitting he kind of forgot Ariad would even be alive at this point. The poor dude was the only butler in the whole place, and Crash was seriously happy to see him, even if the family treated him like trash. But here's where things got spicy. See, Ariad was the guy who took care of him, even when everyone called Crash a failure. But get this, our MC also remembered the dark truth. He straight up asked him when he planned on using the poison his brother gave him. Yep, Ariad was the ringleader who poisoned our boy when he was 14, teaching him the first lesson in betrayal. We flashed back to his first life. Some girl, Charlotte, sent 4 dudes flying through the air with just one hit. Everyone was losing their minds, asking if she was really only 15, because even the knights couldn't touch her. They called her Sword Saint, and of course, she was his older sister. Everybody thought she was a monster talent, and the family's future was basically all riding on her. But in the background, his half-brother, Belakanin, was listening and seething. He wanted to wipe out Charlotte's bloodline, but since her mom was a scary piece of work, he figured he'd start by getting rid of the family loser, Crash. This scum talked to Ariad, saying he wanted our MC dead first, and told this gentleman he knew his career was blocked because of our boy. If Ariad would just give Crash a drop of this poison, Belakanin promised all of this man's money problems and his daughter's medical bills would disappear. Now, this man actually hesitated. He confessed he'd raised our boy like his own kid, so how could he do that to him? This jerk got salty, asking if Ariad was really going to pick someone else's child over his own. This gentleman kind of broke down, not really able to say no to Belakanin's pressure. Then, the flashback turned super dark. Blood was all over the floor. Crash, barely alive and spitting up blood, reached out to Ariad, who was also choking and dying. Turns out this man couldn't go through with it. On the day he was supposed to poison our MC, the guilt crushed him so hard that he ate the poisoned stew himself. As he was dying, Ariad told Crash he was precious to him, like a son, and he had no idea why he'd even agreed to do this in the first place. That's how this poor guy died, apologizing with his dying breath. Back in the present, Ariad looked confused when Crash mentioned the poison. Our boy asked if his butler really thought he wouldn't know, just because the family called him a failure. Ariad started getting anxious, and Crash wondered if he was just pushing the poor guy into a corner again, repeating the same pain. Our MC said fine, if this man wanted to play dumb, that was his call, but he knew the truth. If he hadn't been branded a failure, none of this poison drama would have happened. Ariad said he thought Crash would either hate him or break down in rage after learning about the betrayal. But our hero just told him to follow along, like he didn't even care, which surprised this gentleman. Clearly this wasn't the same little master he'd always known. A bit later, they went to the library. Ariad looked around, a little lost, and Crash knocked on the wall, telling his butler to cut it open. He said, as the butler of the house, this should be easy work. Ariad agreed and got ready, widened his stance, grabbed his blade, and charged up his aura. He swung, sliced the wall clean open, and our MC complimented the cut. He wanted to know why in the world there was a secret passage behind the wall, but our boy just told him he did a good job and stepped inside. Ariad stared at Crash, thinking he was acting way differently than the day before. He even felt like our boy was picking up some of the same vibes as the family's lord. Bro, he was basically asking, what the hell happened overnight? Meanwhile, Crash was getting memories flooding back. Last time he was here, the place was already burned down. But this time, he made it before disaster struck. His butler asked if he should also cut the chains inside, but our hero told him not to bother. He wouldn't be able to. This was the moment for Crash to try out his own power. So, our MC used his Black Hood skill. It started eating away at the lock, and after a minute, IT snapped, the top clanking to the floor. Ariad couldn't believe what he just saw. Crash said it was pretty heavy and dropped it, feeling relieved his skills weren't rusty. This man asked if our boy had maybe made a contract with one of the gods. Crash realized he shouldn't have acted that way, since he hadn't made any contracts yet at this point in time. So, he played it down, saying it was just some minor god, and said Ariad could report him to his father if he wanted. This gentleman looked totally shocked. He said that, up until yesterday, Crash's eyes looked completely dead, like he'd lost all hope. But now, after a single night, he was like a new person, all because of a contract with a god. Ariad figured our MC must have gotten some insane skill, since he shared blood with the family's biggest genius, Charlotte. Even if Crash wasn't at her level, his butler admitted he had no clue what our hero was truly capable of now. He gulped and said that, at the very least, until Crash finished whatever he was planning, he wouldn't tell anyone what he saw. Our boy realized this was actually kind of bad. By acting differently, he was already changing things, causing new effects, like a butterfly flapping its wings and making a storm. Ariad was acting differently, but no matter what, the memory of being betrayed would always stick with him. Maybe Arthur, his old friend, suffered the same way. Maybe that was why Arthur thought the regression power was more like a curse than a miracle. So, our MC looked at his butler and said that if he could cure Ariad's daughter's illness, then he should totally swear loyalty to him. But honestly, Crash was just thinking this was the perfect time to pick up a few more pawns for his game. The more helpers, the better, right? Still, he told Ariad to do whatever he wanted for now and said they'd talk about the daughter thing later, because getting into the secret library was way more important at the moment. As the secret library started to open, there was this wild, bright purple light. Crash's eyes went wide, and he barely dodged an attack that blasted right out of the place. He started breathing heavy, saying he'd survived a ton of those nasty world corrosion curses before, but this one still made his skin crawl. He was sure the secret tome he needed was in here. Then, he spotted it, a book with a faint purple glow. He explained to himself that the secret library of the pavilion held a special book. All the Valheim family outcasts, people everyone called failures, wrote their secrets and memories there. It wasn't really a skill, just pure human knowledge, the kind that could help someone reach the top. At first, everyone in the family could use this place, but it turned into a secret spot because of one guy, Dirus. Dirus was the legendary failure of Valheim, but he also became the strongest monster around, so powerful that nobody could even lay a finger on him. The dude got totally wrecked by world corrosion, but instead of dying, he became unbeatable. And now, the crazy secret book Dirus left behind? It was finally in our boy's hands. Crash apologized to his ancestors, saying it was his turn now. He started thinking about that big shot, how a bunch of the world's most powerful warriors tried to beat him and failed every time. This guy was like some wall nobody could even start to climb. Dirus had something nuts called extreme blood. Basically, he shoved world corrosion right into his own body and used a totally bonkers secret art to control that power. Sadly, half the book was burned, so Crash couldn't figure out exactly why that badass ended up that way. He wondered if maybe Dirus had just lost his mind because he couldn't handle the rage of the corrosion. Our MC remembered that last time he got hit with the world corrosion curse, he actually managed to weaken it using his own skills and survived by mixing it with other curses. He thought if the same trick worked with Dirus's wild, ultimate blood venom, maybe he could steal a curse that would help control all that chaos. If he could pull that off, merging his own power with Dirus's, he'd become something absolutely untouchable. Dude was dreaming big. He turned to Ariad and gave a direct order. From today, nobody gets into the pavilion. His butler said he understood and walked away, but as he left, he thought about everything again. Ariad told himself that he'd looked away from his own mistakes for too long, so now he was going to pay our boy back for his kindness. No way would he ever take Bellakinen's deal. Crash was his real young master. End of story. Meanwhile, Bellakanen was absolutely losing it. He couldn't believe Ariad was turning down his offer just for that useless failure. He ranted that trash like Crash didn't belong in the family and that both kids from that bloodline needed to be wiped out. If only that woman's dirty blood hadn't gotten in the way, he and his sister Lilish would have kept their spots as the real heirs. Still fuming, This bastard yelled for his own butler and ordered him to go spy on our MC and figure out why Ariad bailed on their deal. The butler explained nobody could get in. The entrance was sealed. Even the family head couldn't get through now. This jerk lost it again, saying this man had to be nuts and that Crash, the arrogant failure, must be hiding something. Back in the pavilion, our hero sat down to meditate. He said he'd just hit expert beginner level. He started explaining how all this aura stuff worked. First was aura user, where you just learn the basics. Second was aura expert, which was where most people stopped. And the line between regular and genius, right now, our boy was just barely out of noob territory. Meanwhile, his sister Charlotte, who was only 2 years older, was already an aura master, an absolute beast. But even that monster talent couldn't stop the world's destruction last time. Compared to her, he was still a baby. Crash didn't even know if he could save the world. But then he remembered his old self saying there was no way to know unless he tried. Besides, our poor boy couldn't even use aura at all before the regression. But things were different now. Even if he couldn't catch up to her sister, if he learned Dyrus's secret art, he could totally become someone new. He realized he'd been doubting himself for nothing. He was definitely going to become something else this time around. When he came out, Ariad was there to greet him and congratulated him on hitting expert beginner. Crash just brushed it off, saying it was no big deal, but wanted to know why his butler was there anyway. Ariad told him that his fiancée, Lady Bianca, had entered the pavilion. Crash was shocked because Bianca was also known as the White Demon. She was the one who later got used by the World Eaters and tried to destroy everything, earning her that nickname after she beat one of the 10 Heavenly Strongest. Right now, though, she was just the youngest daughter of the Hardenarts family. Their engagement was just a political move. The North rulers got a connection to Valheim. Valheim got to dump their failure, and the two families got what they wanted. Neither one of them had much say in any of it, but our MC actually had business with her. So here's the scoop on Bianca Harden, the youngest daughter of the North's ruling Hardenarts, but cursed big time. Her mom got hit with world corrosion before she was born, so Bianca got stuck with the snow doll curse. That meant she was born totally emotionless. The curse was so deep it hit her soul. No dispeller could break it, and she couldn't make a contract with any god because her body was ruined. She was basically treated as a cursed kid, born only because her mom died in the process. Her family was cold as ice to her. Crash said he wasn't sure if she hated him or not, but as long as he could seal her curse, it didn't matter. Because the Snow Doll curse was exactly what he needed to help him control the ultimate blood venom rampage. He told Ariad it'd be bad if Bianca saw him like this, wearing these clothes. His butler agreed and said he'd already gotten a change of clothes ready for her. Crash thanked him and told him to let Bianca in and have her wait for a bit. Suddenly, our MC remembered what happened 5 months ago. Back then, he was not exactly boyfriend material. He straight up pushed Bianca's hand away and told her to leave, saying she was only interested in his family's power. Dude even slammed the door in her face after kicking her out, cold. But honestly, she never wanted to come anyway. Her family was all about using her for survival. Her dad said they could only make it if they stuck close to the Valheim family, and her sister told her that with her pretty face, she should just win over Crash, the youngest son. Yeah, like that's all it takes. The problem was, this girl really didn't want any of this, but her family kept pushing, so she ended up as Crash's fiancé. She even thought that, even without emotions, she could still tell right from wrong. She said if this forced political marriage hadn't happened, she wouldn't have let some depressed loser like Crash near her at all. Ouch. Our boy really was not popular. Flashback over, and now we see our MC trying to act like the perfect host. He apologized, saying he couldn't believe someone made tea too hot for a lady with a sensitive tongue like Bianca, and that he'd definitely talk to the maid about it. She just looked confused, probably wondering if he'd hit his head. Plus, Crash looked like he had just fought a wild animal. He was all scratched up. He switched gears fast, saying that the weather was nice and they should walk in the garden to see flowers that don't grow in the north. He called for Ariad to bring some macadamia cookies. The butler said, "Sure," and off they went. Crash tried to be polite, telling her it must have been tough coming all the way here. His fiancée kept it formal, saying that since they were engaged, meetings like this were necessary. But our boy pointed out she sounded like she was reporting to her boss, not meeting her future husband. She still seemed all kinds of confused. Then she told Crash that something was way off. Last time, he looked dead inside, depressed, but today he was acting like a different person. Oh, and by the way, he knew she liked macadamia cookies, but she had never told anyone that before. Weird, huh? Now outside, Our girl straight up asked if he really was Crash. Our MC just stared at her, realizing he might be acting totally different than he used to. Not great for keeping a low profile. As he started to give off some dark vibes, yeah, real murdery energy, Bianca actually apologized, saying she shouldn't have said that. Crash told her it wasn't on purpose, it just slipped out. He admitted his memory of this time was fuzzy, and he couldn't really remember how he used to treat her. But there was one thing he did remember. This exact look on her face was the same one she had on the day she died at North Sea Ice Manor. Bro, that's rough. He figured he'd better talk his way out of this mess. So our MC made up a story, saying that maybe she was right, he was acting differently recently because he had made a contract with a certain god. Bianca just nodded, saying that would explain it, and even congratulated him. See, totally casual about it. But Crash had other things on his mind. He said he wanted to propose something. Bianca was curious. She asked what, and wondered if the new god contract meant he didn't need her anymore. She even asked, super bluntly, if he wanted to call off the engagement. Our boy was like, why would you think that? He admitted he understood not wanting to marry someone like him, but this girl just sighed. She said he was back to talking bad about himself again and couldn't understand why someone from the Valheim family had such low self-esteem. She reminded him that she was his fiancée, and that wasn't changing. Dang. When was the last time this dude heard something honest? Back to business. Crash finally told her the real reason he wanted to talk. He wanted to take her snow doll curse. Bianca looked surprised, since even the top curse breakers couldn't get rid of that thing. She asked if he really meant to take it for himself, but our MC told her he wanted to use it. This girl started thinking out loud about his sad situation. She knew people called Crash a failure. So, maybe he just wanted to get rid of his own emotions to escape all the pain. She guessed that maybe he was just sick in the head. She remembered hearing from a mental mage that when someone hits rock bottom, they either break or suddenly turn nice, almost like a different person. That's when things get dangerous, she said. If anyone close to her became like that, she needed to stay by their side. She grabbed his hand and told him it would be okay, and that he just had to control his emotions, without any curse. Our boy tried to explain it wasn't what she thought, but Bianca suddenly said she would be visiting him a lot more from now on. She was sure that if she asked her dad, she could even live nearby. Crash was lost, thinking she probably hated him since she never wanted this engagement. But this girl told him that, even if that was true, she couldn't just leave someone who was falling apart. She didn't exactly say she wanted to marry him, but she wasn't going to ditch him either. Our boy realized she was the type who always stuck to her decisions, but also that she had totally misunderstood what was going on. He started thinking maybe he should just use his skill in secret if she wasn't going to let him have her curse. So he used Black Hood on her, and suddenly, this weird, shadowy power started wrapping around her. But then, boom, a message popped up. He needed to become her friend to unlock the curse. Our guy looked like he'd seen a ghost. Bro, not just a lock, but a double lock. This snow doll curse was on a whole other level, because it had been with her since before she was born, and it actually became a part of her. The unlocked condition? Become her friend? And let's be real, that's harder than marrying her, because she's got zero emotions and barely cares about anything. But there was no way he could send her home now. That would just speed up her fall into becoming the White Demon. So Crash decided he'd keep her close and look for his shot to unlock the curse. If he could stop her from becoming the White Demon and steal the Snow Doll curse, that would be a win-win for everyone. He grabbed her hands and said he was happy and grateful for the chance to see his fiancée more often. She said she'd go check with her father about living nearby. Later, he saw her off. As she left, Crash figured he probably had a month before she came back, so he'd better use that time to read every secret book on curses and arts he could find because things were about to get nuts. Some days later, our boy thought he was in for a quiet morning, but nope, the universe had other plans. First thing, he opened the gates and saw a line of people dropping off boxes everywhere and a carriage rolling in. Out jumped Bianca, acting like it was no big deal, telling him that from today, she was moving into Green Pine Manor. Bro, she didn't waste any time at all. Fast forward, and our MC woke up later, only to see Bianca drooling in her sleep right next to him. He asked what the hell she was doing, sleeping there again, warning her that if people saw them together like this, they'd totally get the wrong idea. She woke up, wished him good morning, and asked why he was there, flipping the question back on him. Classic misunderstanding. He just told her that was his line, then got up to start his training for the day. He explained that it had already been a few months living with Bianca. When she first showed up, saying she'd be in his care, he honestly couldn't believe she had moved in so fast. Apparently, her dad didn't care. and gave her permission instantly. But Crash was more worried about whether she'd be okay living away from her family, since she was only 12. He thought that, because she had no emotions, her love for her family probably didn't exist either, but maybe living together was a good shot for them to become friends. As they walked around, our MC pointed out how that was all during summer. But now it was already winter, and the year was ending. That meant Rarin Academy's opening was coming up soon. He explained that Rarin Academy was a place built by the 4 great kingdoms to train kids who could fight against world corrosion. Only those between 15 and 20 could go. In his last life, a bunch of people from Blue Sky with broken, overpowered skills came from there. He said those guys were the reason he suffered so much, but now he knew their secrets. If he could get into the academy, he could steal all their skills for himself. He was turning 14 next year, so there was a whole year left to get as strong as possible. But here was the problem. He was starting to run into the limits of his own talent. With just the secret book, he could only reach the beginner level of expert entry. If he wanted to be stronger, he needed to steal Bianca's curse soon and master the ultimate blood venom. Otherwise, he'd be stuck. Later, after finishing his training, he saw her waiting for him again. He asked her if she was really waiting for him every day like this. She said, of course. She couldn't leave him alone. The poor guy was starting to think she was following him around like a baby bird ever since summer. He wondered to himself when she'd finally start seeing him as a real friend, not just a project. He joked that maybe they needed to go out and play or something. Right then, Ariad came in with news. He said, an invitation had arrived from the Star Sanctuary. This was a yearly party for miners in the Kingdom of Starland, a big spot for socializing and making connections. Everyone went unless they had a real excuse. Crash admitted he had totally forgotten about it, since he'd been a total shut-in before. His memories were all fuzzy, but he knew some important guy would probably be there too. Not that he said who. Still, he remembered his promise to his butler not to do anything dumb, so he told him he'd go. Bianca instantly said she was coming too. Ariad was like, got it, and left. His fiancée warned our boy that people at the Star Sanctuary would probably try to trash-talk him. He agreed, saying she was right, and wondered what they might say about her. He even suggested maybe it was better if she didn't go. But she insisted she needed to, because it was a fiancé's job to protect her partner. Crash patted her on the head, saying he wanted her honest feelings, not just fiancé duty. Bianca called him out, saying he was making that sympathetic face again. For months now, he'd been acting super kind to her, way more than anyone from her own family. She said it was warm, and she couldn't even remember how bad her first impression of him was anymore. She admitted that she didn't dislike him now, and wanted to go with him, not as his fiancé, but because she actually wanted to. Our MC just smiled and said he understood. Next thing, they were riding in the carriage, headed to the pavilion where the party was. Crash looked around and thought the place was insane, famous, super expensive to rent, and packed with nobles who could afford just to throw around money. He reminded himself that nobles were supposed to protect people from world corrosion, but most of these guys cared more about partying than training. He didn't expect to meet many decent people at this place. When they finally arrived, everyone started announcing themselves. But it was all just a setup to roast Crash and Bianca. People called them failures, said it was a waste that she was so pretty when she was cursed, but joked that it made sense for 2 losers to be engaged. Our boy was pissed. Then, one of the other kids said someone interesting had arrived. Crash explained that these were some real nobles, future Blue Sky members, the worst of the bunch from his old life. There was a tiger boy named Barak Hogma. Yeah, that's his actual name, Barak, which is wild. With him were the Magpie, Elfin Amelia, and the wooden bow, Annex Glazer. These 3 would be known as the 3 heroes of Starland. The only reason they cared about our boy was probably because of Charlotte. Suddenly, our boy remembered something. Charlotte once told Crash that when she wore a nice dress to this party, everyone wanted to talk to her, but none of them could beat her in a fight. She said the place was basically a trash heap, and bragged about skipping the next one. Judging by how things felt now, our MC figured she'd already gone wild and left her mark. So yeah, Crash was about to dive straight into a Shark Tank. Dude just couldn't catch a break. Our boy was in the middle of the Shark Tank party, but Bianca grabbed his arm and told him to just ignore all those snobby voices around them. He told her he was just thinking about what she said earlier, and noticed it was kind of wild that she didn't care about being badmouthed either. The thing that really got him, though, was how she was worrying about him in a place like this. He told her she didn't have to. He honestly didn't care what the haters said. He said, by the way, someone interesting was about to show up. Right on cue, the announcer called out, Darling Dan Phalion has arrived. Crash just shook his head and thought, speak of the devil. He explained that this guy was the king of weirdos among all weirdos. Darling was the lord of the alchemy castle. Suddenly, our boy got a memory flash from his past life. The first time he met Darling, the dude looked him up and down and commented that Crash's whole body was covered in curses, asking what messed up stuff he had been through. Then, without warning, the dude just grabbed his cheeks and rambled about mixing different curses like it was some recipe, saying it should be possible. This boy even asked if our MC wanted to be his test subject. Crash just stood there, not even answering, but Darling decided he was going to start anyway. Then, out of nowhere, this dandy boy leaned in for a kiss. Our poor MC looked horrified and just uppercut the guy, asking if he was insane. That was actually how he first met the person who would later become the king of alchemy, the best in the world. Everyone else at the party started calling Darling a weirdo, but our boy figured there was no way a drama king like him would miss out on any party with people his age. Back in the present, Crash grabbed a bunch of snacks from a table and handed them to Bianca, telling her to wait for him. She just pouted and said okay, while he started making his way over to Darling. When Crash walked up, this boy looked at him and said he felt like he'd seen him before. Our MC introduced himself, and Darling commented that Crash looked a bit like Charlotte, asking if he was really her little brother, but then wanted to know what our boy wanted, wondering if maybe he was just into his looks. Crash said that recently, this flamboyant boy had been sniffing around about world corrosion, and he thought he might be interested in what our hero had to say. Darling acted all entertained and told him to get ready, since he was interested now. They walked off to another room, and this boy asked how old Crash was. Our MC told him he was 13, asking if that really mattered. Darling just tossed him 2 practice swords, saying that Crash might look young, but his vibe was totally on another level. Our boy thought to himself that he was basically an adult inside, but he said he didn't have all day and wanted to get to the point. This dandy boy told him to just spit it out and threw him a sword to catch. Crash hardly had time to react before Darling came in for an attack. He blocked it and asked what the hell this boy was doing. Darling just said that he wanted to see Charlotte's little brother's skills with his own eyes. Our hero grumbled that this flamboyant boy was a real handful. Darling reminded him that he had something to talk about and told him to keep explaining because he was listening. Crash got annoyed, so he just flung his sword away. Darling laughed and said he thought our boy was supposed to be a failure with no talent. Crash told him he might not look like much, but he was training every day. Still, fighting a nerd with secret techniques felt kind of ridiculous, so maybe it was time to shake things up. He told this dandy boy he could help him with research on neutralizing curses. Darling wanted to know what Crash could possibly know about alchemy. Our MC geared up, dashed in, and pressed the blade to this boy's throat, explaining their research was about neutralizing the curse of the World Eaters, a curse that dispellers still couldn't break, even with other curses. He told Darling that if he wanted to be a top alchemist, he needed to prove this research, and he could help with his own skill, which steals curses. That's when this flamboyant boy realized Crash wasn't some talentless loser and actually grinned, saying if that was true, it would be the perfect chance to prove both the supply and the neutralization of curses at the same time. Darling wanted to know what he had to do in return, joking if maybe Crash wanted a boyfriend. Our hero, looking fed up, asked what the hell was wrong with him and said, no, he just wanted medicine to help with all the curses he was going to steal in the future. Darling said that was exactly his thing. Crash explained that stealing skills alone weren't enough. He said even Blue Sky, who had cheat-level skills, couldn't stop the world from being destroyed. So a so-called failure like our MC had to try everything, even medicine. This boy mentioned he heard Crash lost his motivation because everyone compared him to Charlotte, but it didn't seem that way now. He said one of them was a genius, and the other was some twisted guy, then started blushing, saying both siblings were awesome. But Darling had a question. He wanted to know if our boy was about to enter Rarin Academy. Crash said, obviously, and suddenly got the chills, but of course he was going to steal skills there. This alchemist said if that was true, he'd mix whatever medicine was needed, especially if it meant working with curses. Crash thought to himself, this dude really had not changed, now or back then. Our MC added that there was one more thing he needed. He asked Darling about the discoloration disease. This alchemist explained that it was an incurable sickness that made people's skin turn blue and black before they died. Crash asked for medicine for it. Darling thought he was joking and told him maybe he didn't know what incurable meant, that it was impossible, even for him. Crash told him to do it anyway. This boy just sighed but ended up bumping fists with our boy, saying his pride wouldn't let him turn down a challenge. Man, Our boy really knew how to pick his allies. Then, our MC told Darling that when the medicine was done, he could just drop it off at his place. But this boy got all extra and said he would deliver it himself. Crash rolled his eyes and decided to ask something that had been bothering him. He said he thought Darling liked his sister. Darling just admitted that he did. He liked Charlotte a lot, so he wanted to know why this dandy boy even brought up that boyfriend stuff earlier. Darling looked at him and said, Crash probably didn't get it, but honestly, he liked guys too. He swung both ways. Our boy totally freaked out and ran off, yelling no way. This flamboyant boy chased after him, saying to wait up, and Crash remembered, right, this dude did try to kiss him back then, so it made sense. But as soon as Crash made it out to the hallway, he saw a crowd and immediately felt like something was going down. Sure enough, some dude was grabbing Bianca, hurting her arm, and our MC just went 0 to 100. He flew in with a kick and smashed the guy right in the face, sending him flying. He demanded to know who the hell he was to manhandle his fiancée like that, and said, the dude better have a good reason. The guy acted confused, asking what Crash meant by force. Our boy called him a total creep and accused him of being a pedo, asking if the dude was crazy. The man said he didn't know what Crash was talking about. He was just following Princess Claudia's orders. Our hero asked if he meant Claudia Starland, and the guy confirmed it. He said the princess told him to bring Bianca, but she wouldn't come, so he had to drag her. It was a royal command. He explained to everyone listening that Bianca was the youngest daughter of the Hardenarts, rulers of the North, but because of her curse, all the nobles looked down on her. So, why would a princess suddenly want to summon her? Crash thought something was weird, and then it hit him. It was probably Annex's doing. Our protagonist got really annoyed. He remembered how Annex used to be totally obsessed with his sister Charlotte, always following her everywhere. But when this jerk lost to her at the Holy Land of Stars, he started to hate her, but couldn't stop admiring her, which just messed him up. Since he couldn't beat his sister, he switched targets to Crash, her little brother. Our MC realized they were basically forcing Bianca into all this, so he said fine, he'd go. But only because he wanted to see Annex, not the princess. The guy wanted to know why, but Crash told him he was serving the princess without even knowing who actually gave the order, so maybe he should think about his life choices. Then our hero grabbed his fiancée's hand and said they were going. As they walked down the hallway, Crash was thinking about why Bianca didn't listen to the princess. He figured he already knew who was behind this, because he had lived through all of this before, but this girl was only 12, so she shouldn't have known. So why did she refuse? He asked her straight up, and she said it was because Crash told her to wait. That really caught our boy off guard. And he even smiled and patted her head, telling her she did a great job. While they kept moving, they ran into Barack, who had just woken up from a nap, and asked if Crash had really shown up. Our hero said he was there to see Annex. This tiger boy explained that the jerk told him to let Crash in when he arrived. Our boy thought to himself that he might have to fight Barack, and at least Annex made it easier by giving the order to let him through. This boy admitted he was actually curious about Crash and wanted to have a match. Our MC just sighed, because of course it was going to end up like this, but reminded Barack that fighting was forbidden in the Holy Land of Stars. This tiger boy said he had fought Charlotte before and thought it would be fun to fight Crash too. Our protagonist remembered hearing that Barack lasted longer against his sister than Annex did. Even though both the brats were experts, Barack's level was a bit higher, but his fighting style was so wild that Crash couldn't predict his next move. Our boy hoped to skip the fight and get to Annex, but when he saw this tiger boy's determined eyes, he knew there was no escaping. So he clenched his fist and agreed. Barack struck first, but Crash dodged underneath and came in with a counter. The opponent tried to cartwheel out of the way, but he saw that coming and nailed him with a kick while he was mid-cartwheel. Then, not wasting a second, Crash ran in and hit him with a 1-inch punch right in the gut. This poor guy hit the ground, coughing and struggling. Our hero just sighed. Barack called him merciless, but Crash pointed out that this boy was the one who wanted to fight. Even so, Barack said he wanted to grab his weapons and go again. Our MC told him it was pointless since he couldn't even stand anymore. He was bleeding hard from his nose and tried to ask what Crash meant, but then he just collapsed. Bianca asked what just happened. So, Crash explained he used a secret Valheim technique. A long time ago, a failure of his family invented this punch to deliver maximum damage in the shortest distance. If you did it right, it could even hurt someone's insides. Before he went back in time, this was the only move he saved from his family's burning manor, and it saved his life more than once. He said Barack would be out for a while now, so they could move on without any trouble. When they finally opened the next door, both Annex and Elfin were waiting. That girl ran to check on Barack, but this scum just found it hilarious that Crash actually managed to beat his friend. Our boy said he wanted to know why Annex used the second princess to drag him here. Wasn't it obvious this was all a setup just to make him fight Barack first? This brat asked how Crash figured that out, saying maybe he wasn't like the rumors said. He told him that he knew Annex was the one spreading rumors about him being a failure, but now that he won, things were about to change because he planned to steal Annex's skill. This scum just stared and wondered if Crash was kind of slow, but our MC told him he'd been friends with Annex all the way to Blue Sky graduation. He knew this jerk only kept him around because he was useful, and honestly, that was the worst reason to be friends with someone. Our boy was not letting any of these fake friends off easy this time. Then, our MC remembered his past life before the regression. Everyone else is getting taken down, and Crash is straight up yelling at this brat, begging him for help. But what does Annex say? The dude just shrugs him off, saying if people find out that he fell into the trap, he's done for. He'll lose his spot in Blue Sky. But if he's the only one who makes it out, no one's going to know it was his fault. That's some real snake move right there. Crash isn't buying it. He tells Annex he's dreaming if he thinks it's that simple. The power games in Blue Sky are already wild, and people are going to toss him out as soon as they need someone to blame for all their deaths. This scum just laughs it off and says, whatever, he'll blame it all on our hero anyway. He says everyone already hates him, so it'll turn into a huge mess. But that's good for him. At least nobody will look too closely. Annex even thanks him for being a friend till the end. What a bullshit, because Crash fires right back that he never once thought of him as a friend, and Annex knows that. Our boy points out that the only reason this jerk ever hung out with him was that Annex was obsessed with Charlotte. He tells him everyone can see this brat has been spaced out all day just because his sister is getting married. Crash thinks that's why they're in this mess in the first place. This scum straight up admits it. That's exactly why he hates our MC. He says Crash has zero talent, but his instincts are sharp, always calling him out, always in the way. And that's what he absolutely hates about him. But whatever. Now that Charlotte's getting married, their so-called friendship ends here. Annex says it's probably better this way, since she doesn't need a funeral at her wedding, so he'll make sure she gets her wedding beautiful. Crash starts slipping, like literally about to fall, and wonders if this is really how it ends. But then, surprise, Arthur saves him and asks if he's okay. He thinks that was the start of a brand new disaster, but at least he didn't die there. Because of this hero dude's testimony, Annex got kicked out of Blue Sky anyway. That made the jerk furious, and to make it even worse, he got rejected by the princess he tried to marry as a backup plan. Now, Crash wants to know why Annex is still after him. This brat, looking real salty, says our hero's face, and the way he talks remind him of Charlotte. He tells Crash not to go tossing his sister's name around, and if our boy really thinks they're alike, he'll prove it, because he's the kind of guy who never runs from a fight. Annex smirks as Crash jumps in for an attack, but gets blocked by a tree, like, literally, a tree comes out of nowhere. Our MC tries to use the tree to spin around and attack again, but gets blocked again. This time, the tree just grabs him and tosses him up in the air, slamming him back down. The poor guy manages to land on his feet in front of Bianca, but he's already tired, thinking this is such a pain. Annex tells him he should use a weapon, if that's all he's got. This annoying brat explains that this move is their family's secret, heaven toppling with style. Basically, it's a special technique where you use aura to pump up plants so you can control them however you want. If you combine it with a recovery skill that grows more plants, you can fix the move's weaknesses. Our boy figures, fine, he'll just use one of Annex's own tree branches against him. This jerk laughs and tells him to go ahead. Let's see him defend with a stick. So Crash starts dodging, ducking, and weaving through all the attacks. And Annex is honestly stunned. He says it would make sense if him were a genius like Charlotte, but Crash was always supposed to be a failure. He wonders if our protagonist finally awakened some super skill like Mind's Eye or something. But what Annex doesn't get is that Crash, after all those years together before the time reset, knows all his tricks by heart. Our MC gets right up in his face and asks if he's thinking about his sister again. The enemy gets pissed, saying, Crash better watch his mouth, and then suddenly he summons this wooden giant, an advanced form of his skill. Our boy jumps back, and Annex warns him to be careful now, because this thing is no joke. Elfin runs in and begs this scum not to do it, saying, if this hits Crash for real, it could be game over. Our hero, though, just closes his eyes and remembers a book back at the manor, the skinniest book in the whole place. It was written by some old ancestor who swung his sword day after day until he was about 80 years old. The old guy didn't have any talent, just endless boring practice. But in the end, he wrote down a move that was all about becoming one with your sword. It was a simple truth, no fancy tricks, just total unity with your weapon. Crash figures, since he's already survived a million horrible situations because of his curse, he gets it now. He becomes the sword, and the sword becomes him. He swings down hard, and bam! He cuts right through the giant and leaves all the attacks behind. His sword breaks, and everyone's just staring in shock. Except Bianca, of course. She's just chilling, totally unfazed, since she doesn't have any emotions. With the dust settling, Crash tells Annex he had better stop acting tough and drops the broken branch, asking if this jerk finally gets it. He drops to his knees, while our boy just sits there panting. He thinks to himself that he only wanted to hold back a little to make it easier to steal Annex's skill, but he ended up putting everything into that last move. Now he's so wiped out he can't even talk, just shaking all over. That's when Bianca runs up and hugs him from behind, saying she'll hold him up, but dude, she hugs way too hard, and our MC nearly gets squeezed to death. Darling runs over, freaking out, and says if that girl keeps it up, Crash is toast. He says he'll handle it, and next thing you know, this dandy boy is piggybacking our hero down the hall. People all around are whispering, trying to figure out what happened, until someone spreads the rumor that Crash just beat Annex. Darling says it didn't take long for the story to go wild, and he never meant for any of this to blow up. Now, everyone's calling him a celebrity, and this boy tells him not to die just yet. He still needs him for his research. Dude, our hero cannot catch a break. So, Crash was back at the manor, training like a madman again. He said it had been a week since the banquet, and he finally felt normal after that whole mess with Annex. Honestly, if he had pushed himself any more during that fight, he would have ended up in worse shape than the scum, which is pretty wild. The poor guy was out cold the whole way home. He figured if he hadn't passed out, he could have finished everything he needed to do to steal that skill. He had two ways to take a skill. The basic, unlock the padlocks move, or a sneaky way where you mess with your enemy's head until they stop thinking their skill is so special. He liked that second way for Annex. See, if you absolutely destroy someone in front of everyone, especially with one hit, they start to doubt themselves. It spreads through their brain, slow and steady, until that skill is just begging to get taken. It might take time, but our MC was sure he'd get what he wanted in the end. For now, though, Crash was set on using the next year before the academy to train like crazy and finally get ahead of all those so-called geniuses. Then, Ariad showed up at his door, knocking and saying that Bellakanen was waiting at the pavilion. Apparently, that dude was done being patient for the day. His butler added that this guy had already sent 22 messages, which is honestly kind of desperate. Crash said they might as well let him in, since dragging it out was just going to get annoying. Ariad agreed, and Bianca came in with a glass of water. But our boy noticed she was acting weird, keeping her distance. He asked what was up, and she told him straight up that he stank. Ouch! Crash wondered if she was right, but he thought maybe he just couldn't smell it anymore, since, in his old life, he'd gotten used to the stench of corrosion. Bianca told him he should probably shower before meeting Bellakanen. But Crash said nah, he was just going to get sweaty again anyway. She wasn't having it. She said he needed to stay away. And he teased her, asking if she was actually giving her fiancé orders now. He said she was growing up fast, and that made Bianca bolt out of there, saying she needed to escape his smell. The poor girl. Crash thought her reactions were so cute that he couldn't help but mess with her. He chased her like he was playing with a little sister. Our boy definitely started to enjoy it. But then, all of a sudden, our hero got hit with this wave of doubt. He imagined his old friends from before the time reset, staring at him like he was some kind of loser. He started having a whole argument with Arthur in his head, asking if he was turning soft from living a peaceful life. He wondered if he really thought he could stop the end of the world while acting like this. Crash hated to admit it, but Arthur was a real hero, always at the front line and never letting his guard down, except for that one final moment. He started thinking about where this hero guy was in this life and what he might be doing right now. Bellakanen showed up, catching Crash joking around and saying that he must be having the time of his life, flirting with his fiancée. Our MC just shrugged and said, everyone needs a break sometimes. That threw this man off, since Crash was usually too scared to even look him in the eye. He wondered if those rumors about him beating Annex were actually true. Crash asked if Bellakanen had been busy, since he'd bothered to come all the way over. His stepbrother got confused, And our boy brought up the entrance exam for Rarin Academy, saying that he must be working hard for it. That ticked Cannon off. He asked if Crash was trying to pick a fight with him and laughed nervously. He said their family was so powerful that even the world's strongest empire was scared of them, and no other noble house could compare. Cannon made it clear he was a direct descendant, so Crash had no right to act cocky just because he beat Annex. He said only commoners worried about getting into the academy. Our protagonist agreed, but pointed out he actually wasn't a commoner. This bastard couldn't figure out why Crash was acting so bold. He finally told him he was there to give him a job. They were going to stop world corruption at Mount Guruk. Our hero pointed out that family missions weren't even mandatory until he turned 15. But his stepbrother said not to sweat it, he'd go along as a guardian. He asked if his legendary little brother was scared now that he'd beaten Annex. Crash thought Cannon was just trying to show off, but he said fine, he would go. He was way more used to fighting world conquests than chilling at home. Anyway, it didn't matter if this was some kind of trap, he had a plan to get out. Bianca asked where he was going, and Crash told her he was leaving for the conquest mission and that she shouldn't follow. She asked if she wasn't supposed to go too, because it was weird for a 13-year-old to go stop something like that. Our boy looked surprised, while Cannon got annoyed fast. He tried to talk down to Bianca, but Crash stopped him right away, reminding him that this girl was his fiancée and that a grown-up like Cannon shouldn't be picking on a 12-year-old. This bastard just glared, grinding his teeth, and stormed off. Our MC told Bianca she did a good job, but she insisted she hadn't really done anything. Crash said if she didn't even notice, that was fine, but she just told him not to collapse again. He said he had to go for now. So, here's the thing about world corrosion. It's not just monsters and chaos. Sometimes, whole new species show up, and the land itself changes. If it gets bad enough, the area just turns into a piece of another world. Right now, a swamp was spreading across Mount Guruk. Cannon said this one was called a 3-star corrosion, and asked his man if the purification squad had reported anything. The guy said they would start working as soon as the master was taken care of. Crash explained to himself that a 3-star corrosion was usually easy for a mid-tier night squad to handle. Plus, Cannon might act tough, but he really was a serious fighter, an expert rank at the high end. Taking out the master should have been no problem. His stepbrother got close and told Crash he brought him here to give him some practice as a low-tier, expert rank. Crash pretended to go along, but in his head, he was thinking, who does this guy think he's talking to? The only reason he let Cannon try to boss him around was that he needed to test a temporary fix for that rampage problem. Yeah, our MC was always thinking 2 steps ahead. Right away, they were fighting these insane bugs from another world. But even the knights looked super tired. One guy told his buddy to check something out, probably hoping it wasn't more trouble. That's when Crash, cool as ever, started giving everyone a heads up. He warned them that this beast had no head, but it had teeth, and if you got bitten, your whole body would swell up. He told everyone to make sure to cover themselves with an aura, all over. The knights just stared at him, completely amazed. Some of them even asked if he had fought world corrosion monsters before. But our MC just played it off, saying he was only 13, and it would actually be weirder if he'd ever even been this close to a site like this. The knights had to admit that was true. Then Cannon, annoyed by our boy's cockiness, thought, why is that trash so confident in his first mission? He said that for a so-called failure. This jerk remembered that when he first came to a corrosion zone at 15, he got destroyed emotionally. And here was Crash acting like a pro. He started getting a little salty about it, thinking that if our boy grew up to be another Charlotte and even passed him up, he'd end up being the family loser. You could just see the copium levels rising. Anyway, Cannon gripped his sword and ran ahead, calling back that they'd reach the master monster soon. He said Crash was lucky because this was easier than his own first mission, and it looked like there weren't any weird mutated creatures, except for the main boss. Our MC pointed out that it made it even more dangerous, since that meant the master was strong enough to keep the whole area corrupt by itself. But this bastard didn't want his squad to get spooked by a kid's warning. He told his men to suck it up and finish the job, since it was just a 3-star. Crash figured these guys would do whatever they wanted anyway, so he decided to focus on his own plan. Our hero looked out over the swampy land and said to himself that he could see the world corrosion energy even better than before his time reset. All because he'd mastered Dearest's technique. He just needed to breathe it in and test his new skill. So, what did he do? He took off his mask and sucked in this nasty, corrupted energy like he was taking a massive vape hit. Hardcore move, bro. But immediately his eyes went all bloodshot, and he started coughing up blood everywhere. The squad freaked out and asked if he was dying, but Crash just wiped his mouth and said he was fine. He explained that the energy was basically poison, so it was kinda normal to cough up blood. He said he had to deal with it anyway, since this was all part of Dyrus's technique. He started to focus and followed the secret instructions. He needed to mix his own aura with the corrosion, let it flow like a river, and eventually make it all blend together into a new color. That was the real side effect, the rampage from earlier. Then, his eyes turned completely black. He wobbled a bit and checked his hands, thinking he never could have handled this back when he was just an average kid. He realized it was time to use the secret art. So, here's the wild story. After Dyrus went missing, some blind ancestor found the secret archive, but the poor guy couldn't read the manuals. So, he just closed the door for good and left his own instructions behind. That move, the sixth sense, a special ability to feel everything with your aura. Crash could only use it for short distances, but that was enough to know where he was, even if the whole area was a mess. He figured out he wasn't in a spot totally taken over by the rampage, so he could survive for now using this trick. Still, once he actually absorbed all that corruption, he knew the rampage could kick in any second. That's why he still needed Bianca's snow doll curse to keep himself under control. But hey, he survived, so that was already a small win. Suddenly, Crash felt this icy chill run down his back. He turned around, and what was there? Oh man, pure nightmare fuel. Some eldritch freak was just staring him down, eyes wide open and body twisting around like something out of a horror movie. Even Belakanin screamed when he saw it. That's when the whole squad realized they were staring at the master, and this thing had a giant head growing out of the bottom. It let out this gigantic roar, and everyone basically lost it for a second. Both Crash and Belakanin knew this was the worst possible monster, the Thousand-Faced Demon. This guy yelled at everyone to get ready for a real fight. He stepped up first, showing off his skill by coating his blade in blazing fire. His signature move was called Ignis, and the team all murmured that it was always awesome to watch. That attack didn't just look cool, it could burn up anything, no matter what it was. In our boy's last life, Ignis's move even burned his arm, so he remembered it all too well. Back then, Belakanin had used it just to prove how much stronger he was, and Crash wondered if his stepbrother was still the same kind of psycho. He watched, waiting to see if Belakanin would change anything, but suddenly disaster hit. One of the soldiers got his whole face bitten off by the demon. Then another guy started yelling that it was a face-eating curse. Even the senior knights were getting owned by this monster's 8 arms, and the apprentices started panicking. One guy just straight up said their only hope was to run for their lives. But Belakanin wasn't about to back down. He shouted at the squad to stand their ground and attack the demon, blasting it with fire. The monster screamed in pain, and he told everyone not to give up because he was creating an opening. The squad saw the demon burning, and their hope fired up again. They realized that as long as they followed this bastard, they actually had a shot. Our hero, Crash, was right there in the middle, watching it all. Dude, things were about to get crazy. So, Belakanin was feeling himself for a second, thinking Crash was probably still watching him from way off on some rock. But he started to wonder why our MC was just staring at the demon instead of cheering him on. The next thing he noticed was that the demon itself was crying, bloody tears, and letting out some really freaky screams. Like, something was seriously wrong. He got a bad feeling, realizing this was turning into a nightmare. So, he leapt up, feeling this weird pressure in the air. He told himself he had to kill the monster right now before things got any worse. Shouting to his men to attack with him, he went for it, only for his attack to do absolutely nothing to the monster. Now, our guy was confused and a little freaked out. He told everyone to attack now, before it could change again, but suddenly it went dead silent around them. He glanced back and saw all the knights frozen in fear. He couldn't figure out why they were so terrified of something like this. Then, he got paranoid, wondering if he'd caught a curse or something. He hadn't even touched the monster, but maybe that weird feeling he'd had since earlier was actually the curse working on him already. Of course, that's when the monster made its move. While Belakanin was lost in thought, it grabbed him and went in for the kill. Lightning crashed, rain poured, and just like that, his fire powers fizzled out. Now he was really panicking, heart pounding, telling himself he was definitely about to die. He screamed and just bolted, running through the swamp, swearing he was a goner. But the demon was right on his tail and wasn't letting him escape. While he was freaking out, he started hallucinating his sister Charlotte's voice, making fun of him for being a failure and reminding him he'd just gotten all his knights killed. She mocked him for always bluffing and now trying to run just to save his own pride. She said he deserved to die, plain and simple. That's when the monster caught up and got ready to smash him. Bellakanon knew he couldn't handle the hit, so he tried to block, but the thing just shattered his arm, and his vision went fuzzy as he stared up at the stormy sky. When he woke up, he was being dragged through the mud by none other than Crash. Bellakanon was totally lost, asking what the hell had just happened and why our hero was even there. Crash told him he was just glad the guy was still alive. His stepbrother was shocked, honestly, that he'd survived at all. Our MC explained that he'd been watching the whole time, and when he saw Bellakanon get swallowed by the swamp, he avoided the demon's sight, yanked him out, and got both of them away. This scum tried to act tough, saying he could walk on his own, but Crash shut that down quickly. He said there was nothing Bellakanon could do now, his body couldn't even use aura anymore, and his arm was basically destroyed. He had no choice but to let our boy help him. That tore at this jerk's pride. So, he gritted his teeth and grabbed his sword, still trying to be macho. He heard creepy screams in the distance and asked if the demon was still nearby, but Crash just shrugged it off, saying, "Who knew?" He explained that even though they'd walked for ages, they hadn't reached the edge of the place. It looked like the world corrosion was a closed-off space, so unless they beat the demon, they might be stuck there forever. Bellakanon started to panic again, but our hero told him not to worry. He actually had a secret killer move, a special technique her sister taught him. Crash said this was the reason he was able to go toe-to-toe with Annex. His stepbrother was curious but admitted it made sense. Charlotte had always been nice to him, probably because they shared the same mom. He asked if Crash really thought he could beat the demon. Our MC answered that he could. It was better to fight than to die lost in the dark. He said he knew Bellakanon wouldn't trust him, but if he trusted in that girl's ability, then it was worth the risk. This guy agreed. Charlotte was a genius, after all. Crash moved behind Bellakanon and started prepping his weird power, while this scum grumbled that if the plan failed, they'd both be finished. But he just grinned and promised he wouldn't mess up. The monster's screams got louder and closer. Crash asked Bellakanon if he was ready for Ignis. This guy said he was, so our MC stood up, widened his stance, and started taking some serious deep breaths. Aura started swirling around his body, and even Bellakanon had to admit it looked insane. The aura was so pure and intense, he'd never seen anything like it. He remembered Crash had told him to add Ignis to Charlotte's signature technique, but no matter how much he practiced, he could never manage that level of power. Yet here was our hero, just straight up pulling it off. Crash then told Bellakanon to hit him with Ignis, and his stepbrother fired up his blade, fusing his flames with our boy's energy. Crash's blade was now on fire, burning even brighter than Bellakanon's ever had. This bastard felt a wave of jealousy. If his little brother really beat the demon, it meant he was the weaker brother. And man, that was a rough pill to swallow. Then Crash just unleashed the move. One big upward slash that completely sliced the monster in half. The demon's two halves burned up and turned to ash, and suddenly the whole place started to light up. He told Bellakanon it was finally over. This scum, still bitter, demanded to know how Crash did it so easily. He clenched his sword, snapped, and lunged at our protagonist, yelling for him to die. But the surprise was on him. His Ignis wouldn't work. He was in shock, asking why his fire wouldn't start. Crash explained that he was thankful Bellakanon was still just as predictable as ever. See, the padlock on Ignis had 3 steps. First, giving some of it to an opponent. Next, admitting the other person could use it better. And finally, a total collapse of pride. When our MC pulled off that last big attack, Ignis had officially switched owners. Crash didn't waste time. He hit Bellakanon with a burning strike, and the guy started screaming as he burned. He cut off a piece of his brother's flaming flesh and stuck it on his own blade. He told Bellakanon it would have been nice if they could get along, but no matter what he tried, it never worked out. He blamed it all on this jerk's obvious hatred. Still, Crash admitted he always had a little hope his brother would finally accept him, but that never happened. Then, in the coldest move ever, our hero started feeding Bellakanon his own burning flesh, asking if it hurt, and saying he went through this same pain when this bastard burned him before. As Bellakanon kicked and screamed, Crash just watched until his brother finally stopped moving. He was standing there, saying the weather was actually really nice, which, bro, is just so messed up after all that. The next day after the chaos was over, at the Valheim main estate, everyone was freaking out because Bellakanon's whole night squad had just gotten wiped out. The world corrosion or whatever had apparently jumped up to 5 stars, which sounded pretty bad. There was this strict rule that said if things got that crazy, A superclass had to get involved. Nobody normal could handle it. Some people started saying that if Belakinin hadn't basically sacrificed himself, even our hero wouldn't have made it out. That was kind of wild. Dude finally did something for someone else, I guess. Then his stepbrother's butler, who honestly had some nerve, started gossiping about how that good-for-nothing, meaning Crash, obviously, had survived all this. But the head butler totally shut him down, telling him to watch what he said because Crash was the brother Belakanin gave his life to protect. He said Belakanin's death was honorable, and nobody should disrespect it. Our boy heard all this and realized everyone actually believed his story about what happened. He figured, cool, that meant he didn't need to stress about it anymore. He even thought that, thanks to this scum's drama, he'd gotten a ton out of the trip. He'd figured out he could kind of control all those wild rampages with his sixth sense, and maybe even use Darius's special moves now. Plus, he got Ignis, and by mixing it with the world corrosion power, he could make some crazy black flames. Apparently, those flames were way stronger than he expected, and he was thinking he might save them for a trump card. The color was creepy looking, but hey, power's power. But of course, nothing's ever truly over for this guy. There was still a big investigation going on about all the weird stuff happening in the world corrosion zones, so our MC had to deal with that next. He went to a room, knocked, and a woman inside told him to come in. He walked in and started explaining that nobody had figured out the real reason for all the strange phenomena yet. But honestly, he knew. It was totally a World Eater's fault. The main body of the Eater was stuck in some kind of eternal dream and could only mess with the real world by sending out minions, like the undead. Since things were starting to move, Crash figured he'd be running into these minions pretty soon. The lady, her name was Sapira, was acting all chill and told him she'd been waiting for him. She introduced herself as a fourth-class investigator, but our boy immediately noticed the black star around her neck and knew instantly what it meant. He said he hadn't expected to meet her so soon, which got her all curious, asking what he was talking about. He just straight up told her he knew she was undead and wanted to make a deal. He'd erase the immortality of her and her kind. Sepira actually smiled at that and said, if he were a regressor, apparently she was looking for something else. But finding a regressor was not what she expected. Girl really thought she'd caught a big fish. Then Crash started laying it all out about the immortal dude. His name was Crimson Garden August. In the timeline before, back when Arthur was calling the shots, they'd tried to seal August's immortality, but it didn't work out. This hero dude said that with this plan, the immortal would be so busy regenerating his broken body, he wouldn't have time to tell his underlings what to do anymore. Mary piped up, saying the reason the immortal had so many minions was that his main body was cursed and couldn't even move. That actually made her feel kind of bad for him. But Sigrun wasn't buying it. She said there was nothing pitiful about an immortal who did nothing but cause trouble, and Mary shouldn't act all innocent. Mary insisted she wasn't. Arthur just said that this settled the immortal problem and told everyone to stop arguing. Too bad, Crash couldn't steal immortality though. Our hero admitted that it was true. Even if he was reborn, it wouldn't work anyway. The steal only worked if he was stronger than the immortal, and that was basically impossible. Suddenly, August himself spoke up, asking if Crash was a regressor. Our boy wanted to know why he thought that. August said that only someone who could mess with time, like a regressor, would dare make such a crazy offer to him. Crimson Garden August. He said Crash was trapped in time too, and it was a total lie that he could kill someone like him, who transcended time itself. Our MC shot back that it wasn't a lie, and his skill could even steal August's immortality as the power started wrapping around this being's undead body. August was honestly shocked. He explained he'd been raising the world corruption rank just to meet someone like Crash, who could maybe kill him. He wanted to know what the conditions were. Crash told him he had to get stronger, or the skill wouldn't work. August asked if that meant he wanted to be his disciple, and said if getting rid of immortality was the prize, he'd even sell his soul. He agreed to the deal and announced he, Crimson Garden August, would train our hero to become the strongest guy alive. Crash was blown away. He could feel August's aura, and even without his true body, it was totally insane. He was a monster, maybe even on Arthur's level, with even more terrifying underlings. With August's help, he could get so much stronger, and that was exactly what he needed. Even if he had to borrow power from something as dangerous as a World Eater, Crash was determined to stop the corruption and save everyone from getting wiped out. He explained something else important. A skill could only belong to one person in the world. Because of that, the regression skill had already returned to Arthur in this world, which meant Crash couldn't reset time again even if he tried. If everything got destroyed this time, he'd be wiped out for good, no retries. His hands started shaking, and for the first time, he called August Krim. August just stared at him and told him to call him Master instead, then actually smacked him. Dude was not messing around. Our MC said he was actually happy he could go home, but this mentor, being a total troll, told him that this was his home now. Crash just said he'd stayed here so long ago he couldn't even remember his parents' faces anymore. Suddenly, his mom's direct knight, a Valkyrie, showed up and ordered Crash to meet his mom. Apparently, his mother had never shown her face to him before, but maybe now she was curious about his changes. The Valkyrie added that his dad, the head of the house, wanted to see him when he returned from the Forbidden Domain. Our boy was shocked. His dad was apparently a demigod now, maybe even noticed something about Crash through the stars. This woman said Lady Arya wanted him to stay at the house until then. Crash wasn't having it. He said Bianca was waiting on him, and he had way too much to do just to sit around. He asked if staying the night was a direct order from his dad, and if not, he'd be leaving for now. He said he'd come back if his dad called or wanted to see him. So our guy got into the carriage, wondering if he was finally free. He really did not want to go back anytime soon. But of course, August wasn't done. He turned into a bird and started squawking for Crash to open the door. Our hero complained that the bird's color was way too flashy. August bragged that he could change colors whenever he wanted, so now he'd be as black as a crow, or as black as Crash's wicked heart, which was kind of a weird flex. Our boy got annoyed again and asked why this bird wasn't just using his real body. August reminded him that he literally couldn't move his real body and called Crash a dumb regressor again. Of course, our MC wasn't about to reveal that Arthur was the real regressor, and he was just using a borrowed skill. He figured, why bother explaining? Some secrets are best left alone. Then, our poor guy finally made it home, and the first thing he did was joke that there was a white chick here he needed to be gentle with. Yeah, he was totally calling Bianca a chicken. What the hell, right? Anyway, she welcomed him back in her usual way, and he just had to say he told him so. Nobody really knew what he meant. But Ariad ran over, too, all excited. Crash wanted to know if anything weird had happened while he was gone. His butler said nope, just that a letter came from someone named Darling. It was about that medicine for the discoloration disease, and apparently, this alchemist would bring it soon. He shook his head, thinking Darling was crazy, but he told Ariad to treat this dandy boy with lots of respect if he showed up. After all, a benefactor like him was rare. His butler said he got it, but added that Bianca had been worried sick the whole time Crash was gone. That actually surprised our hero, but Ariad explained that as soon as she heard he'd gotten mixed up in some corruption mess, she ordered him to prepare the carriage immediately. Then our boy realized something wild. He hadn't checked Bianca's locked curse lately, so he checked it. Damn, and now, it had actually unlocked. Turns out he'd become her friend for real. That left the guy totally speechless for a second. She just stood there with her usual poker face, but even her eyes were glowing a bit, so you know something was up. Crash was totally shocked and just stood silently. Bro looked like he'd seen a ghost. Next thing, our guy is standing outside the big green Pine Manor gates with Bianca. Perched on his shoulder is this little black bird. That's Krim. In case you forgot, the immortal world eater guy. His fiancée is just holding her book, looking at Crash like he's got something on his face. She asked if there was something wrong with her, but our MC got flustered and said no way, nothing like that. He just wanted to introduce her to someone new. He held out his arm and Krim flew over to land on Bianca's arm. She looked at the bird, still totally calm, and repeated the name, Krim. She even said it sounded soft, like cream. Kinda cute, huh? Crash watched her cradling the bird and figured out, wow, maybe Bianca actually liked animals. Then, being the sneaky planner he is, he asked himself, in his head, of course, how to unlock the second part of Bianca's curse. A big new lock showed up in his mind, even bigger and surrounded by stronger chains. This time, the condition was, become this girl's most precious person. Our hero started thinking hard. What the hell did most precious even mean? He pictured stuff like a parent, a kid, a friend, or a lover, and since they were engaged, he guessed lover was the answer. But yeah, he wasn't about to start flirting with a kid, even if he was technically an adult in his head. Get a grip, bro. Krim, still looking like an emo little bird, piped up and said that Bianca really liked Crash, like she wouldn't let go of him earlier. So, yeah, our MC had definitely made an impression. Now, as the sun went down, this bird stared our hero down and told him to quit the small talk. It was time to test Crash's strength. He wanted our boy to meet him at the training grounds. No excuses. Crash, looking all serious, just said he'd be there. So, fast forward to night at the training grounds, our MC got absolutely wrecked. He was lying on the ground, blue sparks all over him, looking like he had just been flattened by a truck. Krim was up high, looking disappointed as hell, saying this was weak. Was this really all a regressor could do? Crash was honest with himself. He thought that, yeah, this is why he always called himself a failure. Everything he'd done so far was because of regression or the skills he'd stolen. Even if he worked his butt off, a real genius would still smoke him in 5 years. But Krim wasn't having it. He said, sure, that might be true if you only cared about talent, but in front of his mentor, talent meant nothing because he had his special skill. He could just steal everybody's talent anyway. Krim said he'd bring our MC to the top, no matter what, as long as Crash was ready to take it all. Then, things got spooky. A clawed shadow appeared, and this master basically told him to steal his immortality too. That was the plan, and Crash was totally in. Then, our boy just stared at the full moon outside the window. A few days later, everything was chill at Green Pine Manor. And then, boom! Darling Dan showed up, smiling widely while jumping up and down like he was in some romance movie. He yelled that he was here, calling Crash, honey. Bro, our protagonist was not having it. He wanted to know when he became someone's honey. Darling got all pouty, but Crash just wanted to see if he'd brought what he promised. This alchemist whipped out a vial of mysterious pills and said, ta-da! It was finished! He even asked if Crash finally believed he was a genius, and for once, our MC actually admitted it. He said Darling was always a genius. This flamboyant boy just about melted, hugging Crash from behind with hearts in his eyes, but our boy was rejected outright. Then Darling switched gears and said he had some big news. Annex, yeah, that guy, had changed. Crash was like, what? Seriously? This boy explained that after losing to Charlotte, Annex quit training, but after the whole Star Sanctuary drama, he started again. Our MC just shook his head, thinking that guy was always a pain, and now he was going to cause even more trouble. Krim, perched up in a tree, said that maybe there was more to these people than he thought, and that he was planning to toughen up Crash's weak body with a special tonic. He told our MC to get that alchemy genius, obviously Darling, to make a potion. Crash was surprised, but his mentor just said to ask for the recipe and get it done. That got Crash thinking. That kind of elixir, boosting aura and strength, was super rare and crazy expensive. Only noble families usually had it, and our MC never even had a shot before. Crash told Darling he needed another favor. Make that potion. This alchemist was like, whoa, asking for a lot, aren't you? But he just said not to worry about the cost. The Valheim house wouldn't help anyway, and he'd take care of everything himself. Then this bird told our boy to repeat the recipe after him. Darling was totally lost for a while. Afri, trying to process all the weird ingredients and instructions. He wanted to know where Crash learned this stuff. But Crash explained it was a Valheim family secret. Figures, right? Nothing normal about that family. This dandy boy said he could make it, but getting the ingredients would be next to impossible. The first one, white sun flame fungus, only grew on snowy mountain peaks crawling with monsters, Bianca's home territory. Our hero already had a plan for that. He'd ask her, since her family was from there. But the big problem was the second ingredient, golden dragon grass. That one only showed up near a golden dragon's nest deep inside the Empire. You could maybe buy it on the black market, but if the Empire caught you, you'd be toast. Crash said he'd do whatever he had to, even track down shady traders. But Darling had another idea. The Empire was running a martial arts tournament for kids under 15, and first prize was golden dragon grass. Perfect, right? Except our MC pointed out that his joining would be a political nightmare, since the tournament was basically a stunt to get attention from the Academy. If a Valheim joined, it'd be chaos. Darling, grinning like a lunatic, said not to worry. He had a plan. He handed Crash a little pink vial full of glowing purple liquid. Our protagonist was suspicious and asked if it was supposed to make him invisible, but he just told him to drink it. As soon as Crash downed the stuff, his body exploded with dark, sparkly energy and bam! Suddenly, he was a girl. Long hair, smaller body, totally different. She was shocked, like, what the hell just happened? Darling was super pleased, saying that as long as nobody recognized our boy, there'd be no problem entering the tournament. He even joked about Crash joining a harem as a girl. Bro, what is wrong with this guy? Crash was furious. Our poor protagonist glared, showing him the creepy hand, energy bursting everywhere. And Darling just about died of fear. He apologized as his life depended on it. Can you blame him? Our MC does not play around when it comes to weird alchemy side effects. After that hilarious gender bender thing, Crash was back in the grind. The guy was in the training room, blue aura flickering like lightning around him. He wasn't messing around today. Crim, that's Crimson Garden August, the creepy crow, was there too, floating in the air with his own crazy red aura. When the crow moved, it was super fast, just a blur of red energy coming straight at Crash. Our boy blocked left and right, trying to keep up, but this mentor kept coming. Things got wild when Crash tried to block with his sword. Blue and red lights crashed together, but in the end, our MC got tossed to the floor like a wet towel. He was just lying there, gasping for air, while Crim looked down at him and said, "That was enough for today." This master started talking about the move he'd just taught Crash, the dull blade. He said it was a sword skill that let you read the enemy's attacks right away. No hesitation. Dude called it some advanced level stuff. Crim kept going, saying that if you mixed that skill with Crash's own instincts and his sixth sense, our MC was getting close to seeing the future, as he could almost tell what was coming before it happened. Pretty crazy, right? And once that body-enhancing potion kicked in, this mentor said our boy's speed would finally keep up with his brain, and then he'd be unstoppable. Crash just stared up at Crim like, for real? He was still beat, but you could tell he believed it. This master said they needed to get moving soon, and he agreed. He got up, looking a little surprised that he was actually excited for what was next. Crim then asked if they should get going, and Crash was like, let's do it. Cut to our MC, all cloaked up, leaving the manor like a secret agent. He was heading out, holding the mysterious blue potion with a head-like lid given by that weird alchemist. But before that, let's rewind a few days. Crash had been holding up this little potion bottle, asking Darling if it would really hide him. The alchemist, all dramatic as usual, said, of course it would, even magic couldn't see through it. He told him to use it and sneak into the tournament pretending to be just a normal kid. Then, he told this alchemist should have just given him this potion from the start instead of pulling the whole girl transformation move. Darling got sheepish and said it was just a joke, like it was no big deal. Crash wanted to know how long the invisibility effect lasts, and he said about a day. Our poor boy thought Darling was helpful, but, man, he was exhausting. Back in the present, outside the manor, a fancy carriage was waiting. Ariad was there with some shady-looking guys. Crash showed up in his cloak, ready to go. This man explained he'd set up everything. A broker from the lawless zone and a merchant to help them sneak across the border. Ariad even got a caged monster, an erosion species, to help them slip past the guards. Total black market stuff. Our protagonist told his butler he was doing great and said he could trust him to run things at Green Pine Hall while he was gone. Ariad looked super serious, promising he wouldn't let anyone in, not even the head of the family. Dude had a blue aura crackling all around him. You could tell he meant it. Then, there was a flashback. Crash had saved Ariad's daughter with some rare medicine, and his butler was bawling his eyes out, bowing to our boy, saying he had no more regrets. Crash just told him to keep living and serve him until he said otherwise. Compared to saving a life, he said, serving wasn't a big deal. Ariad cried even harder, pledging to survive for Crash. Our MC just smirked, clearly satisfied. He felt like he could finally forgive this guy for that old betrayal now. Back outside, while Crash was getting ready to leave, Bianca showed up in a hoodie, holding a basket. She had made sandwiches for him and told him to take it easy for once. She said there was no time for rest. She'd come back as soon as she got the white sun flame fungus. She gave him the basket and said she'd be waiting at Blue Pine Hall. Crash promised he'd return soon. Our MC thanked her for the meals and said he'd eat the food later. Bianca wished him safe travels, and Crash told her to take care too. Then he jumped into the carriage, fired up to head for the Empire. After the journey, they rest for a while. Our protagonist is training, thinking about all the wild skills he's stolen so far. Fire, corruption, all that dark power. He checked in on how the erosion power was holding up, and thanks to his sixth sense, things were under control. The past few days had been mellow, but he thought it was kind of a shame he didn't get to mess around with more wild energy on the way. The merchant lady was smart. She picked routes that avoided erosion zones. While Crash was lost in thought, Crim noticed something was up with the carriage. The merchant was suddenly surrounded by bandits in the woods. She was scared out of her mind as they grabbed her hands and started making threats. She wondered if they were going to die right here, but our boy wasn't going to let that happen. A burst of purple energy exploded out. The bandits got shredded by a force they couldn't even see coming, straight up horror movie style. Some of the goons tried to rush, Crash, yelling to finish him, but our MC just stood there, purple flames swirling around his hands. The bandit boss acted all tough, saying Crash couldn't rely on weapons now. Our hero was like, "What? This thing?" and looked at his hand, where he was forming a sword out of pure dark energy. The boss was shocked, but he just cut them all down, eyes glowing cold. No mercy. The bandit leader was losing it, yelling that Crash was no ordinary kid. He swung his big axe, but our boy blocked it with his phantom sword. The two of them went back and forth, but Crash dodged and blocked every single move, making it look easy. The bandit leader realized his attacks were getting read like an open book and started freaking out. Our protagonist smirked, thinking he could do this without even using the sixth sense, but decided, nah, let's go all out. The bandit lunged at him, yelling he'd smash Crash's head in. He thought he had the upper hand, and he unleashed a brand new move, a phantom battle axe. Our MC was startled for a moment. He recognized the secret technique that the bandit used, must be a disciple of the butcher dog or something. The bandit was totally panicking, but it was too late. Crash, surrounded by flames and power, just about to burn this criminal alive. Our hero might look like a kid, but dude, nobody's going to mess with him now. Right then, he asked if he is the butcher dog's underlings. Well, butcher dog Belkin is a murderer who became a servant of the world corruptor alongside the white demon Bianca. Crash remembered that Butcher Dog, a total psycho, was supposed to sneak into Starlon and mess everything up in the future, but instead, he would get wrecked by Charlotte Valheim. Then, he thought about how she became famous in the whole empire after taking down Butcher Dog, but he realized something was off. He wondered why these bandit underlings were already causing trouble in the lawless zone when that stuff was supposed to happen way later. Our boy got a weird feeling, thinking this was happening way too soon, and told himself to hurry up, grab the golden dragon grass, and bounce before things got worse. Then, all of it just happened so fast. The bandit boss was toast, still smoking on the ground, and Crash stood there, looking like a total badass, while a merchant lady hid behind her wagon, shaking. Next up, our boy hit the city, Ceylon, the imperial capital. This place was buzzing, packed with people and tall buildings everywhere. There was this big wooden sign about a martial arts tournament, and the crowd was crazy huge. Meanwhile, up on this fancy balcony, the fourth imperial princess, Cicely Ephania, a white-haired genius girl who looked like she could start trouble for fun, couldn't believe how many weird and interesting faces she saw. She was low-key hyped about the chaos. Then she told one of her maids that she was taking all these rough diamonds to Lahern Academy, which definitely sounded like a flex. Her guard, a big, serious woman, said she was being way too wild and that if the emperor saw this, he'd freak out hard. Cicely didn't want to hear about her dad, and started acting like she was hearing her father angry at her, which made her go crazy and close her ears with hands. Then there was a flashback. Cicely, when she was like 7, was a total brainiac, solving math problems no one else could even read. Some old guys saw her and whispered about telling the emperor and maybe making her an imperial candidate. Cicely, though, was terrified. She thought if a sickly girl like her got mixed up in the throne drama, she'd get smoked right away. So, she decided to make everyone give up on her, acting totally wild and silly, so they'd stop seeing her as a threat. The plan worked. No one wanted her as the next emperor anymore. From then on, she used her brilliant mind to its fullest by playing the role of an uncontrollably wild daughter. Anyway, now, back to the present. Sarah, the guard, watched the fourth princess act crazy in the crowd and thought to herself that she knew it was all an act, but this princess was really going for it these days. Then, she spotted some sketchy guy in the crowd, with a crow on his shoulder. She told Sarah to check him out, saying he totally looked like a villain, and maybe even someone from Valheim, the Empire's archenemy. Sarah thought the dude looked weird, but doubted a Valheim would pop up here. Cicely just said not to doubt his instincts. Suddenly, the princess decided to join the party, and shouted that she was going to check it out herself. Her guard totally freaked out and yelled her name, but she just grinned, and jumped off the balcony like it was nothing, landing right in the crowd below. Everyone was shaking. Cicely stomped her foot, saying she was about to reveal someone's true identity. Blue sparkles started floating around her as she used her telekinesis to lift both Crash and the crow into the air. Our boy was caught completely off guard, but landed softly. Then, with a cool tone, he called Cicely a wild girl, and told her to watch where she was going, then just strolled past with a sneaky little smile. The princess watched Crash with a fake smile, but inside, she was freaking out, thinking the way Crash talked and acted meant he knew who she really was. Meanwhile, our MC, he thought it was lucky to meet the princess, but honestly, he wished he could avoid her completely. Later, our hero finished signing up for the tournament as Crad and wanted to find a place to sleep. But every inn in the city was full. The poor guy looked like he was about to pass out, so he figured he'd have to sleep outside like some stray animal. Then an old woman rolled up, nice as could be, and offered him a place to stay if he was in the tournament. He was super happy, but Krim the Crow just thought the whole thing seemed hella sketchy. Crash didn't care. He was done sleeping outdoors and took the offer right away. Krim started complaining that our boy should know better than to trust strangers, but he said he'd done enough rough sleeping in his last life. The crow just called him out for being a crazy regressor. When they got to the old lady's house in the village, she told Crash to take the room on the second floor and that dinner would be ready soon. Our boy thanked her, thinking he finally got lucky. But when he opened the door to his room, guess who was sitting there? Cicely, with a grin like she'd planned the whole thing. Then, the genius princess called him out as the person from earlier, and our MC just froze. He realized he'd totally walked into a trap, and Krim was sitting there like, told you so. Crash thought if he found out he'd be in deep trouble, so he tried to ignore her and just go into the room. But she followed him, teasing him about ignoring such a cute girl, asking if maybe he just didn't like girls. Our boy, already annoyed, told her she wasn't his type and that there were way prettier girls in the world. Cicely got a bit salty and wanted to know who he meant, but he said he didn't have to answer her questions. Anyway, she just laughed, saying he was just as mysterious as he looked. Crash told her not to follow him and tried to avoid her, but she just giggled and said they should eat together because she wanted to know more about him. But our boy was just done with all the trouble and turned his back, saying he refused because it was too much hassle. She didn't take no for an answer and, acting all royal, reminded him she was a princess now. She asked if he really thought it was okay to treat her like this, even knowing who she was. She started heading downstairs but stopped and called Crash by his fake name, Crad, from Starlawn. Hearing that, our hero absolutely panicked. How did she figure out where he was from just from a little conversation? Our poor MC was in big trouble now, bro, and Krim. The crow just sat there, probably thinking this was gonna be fun. Then the princess leaned in, voice sharp, and called out Crash's fake name and fake hometown, Mr. Crad, from Starlawn. Our MC was in full panic mode inside his head. He thought if he slipped up and said too much, she would find out that he was actually from Valheim, and then he'd be totally busted. Trying to act cool, Crash looked away and told the princess he didn't know what she was talking about. He said a little kid like her should just eat her food and get ready for bed. Wow, our boy was really asking for trouble there. Cicely got all mad, cheeks puffed out, and pointed at him, saying he was calling the wrong person a kid. She told him he was a child too. Honestly, these two were about to start a food fight if someone didn't step in. Anyway, now, our boy was having his dinner. While all that was happening, the 4th Imperial Princess and her serious aide were up in the palace, looking over the dinner's place. The aide asked if Crash, as Crad, was really from Starlawn, and the princess said, yeah. But she had her doubts. In her head, she was thinking about how, even though Crash's accent sounded almost like a local, there was just something off about it. Only someone like her could notice, apparently. The aide actually said that too, giving her a little ego boost. The princess just shrugged, acting cool. But you could tell she was kinda proud. Meanwhile, the princess herself was thinking super hard, her eyes all glowy and intense. She thought her brain could see things most people missed, and she noticed how Crash seemed to know a bit too much about her. Even though she had no memory of him, she thought that kind of ability was almost like a special mind's eye. Bro, she sounded way too dangerous for our poor MC. Suddenly, the aide asked if they should grab our boy and question him, but the princess said, no way. Things were finally getting interesting, and she didn't want to ruin the fun. But then she switched topics and asked if Sarah found anything new about her sister. Sarah confirmed that, yeah, the 3rd Princess Sigrun was acting totally different from last year. She wasn't herself anymore. The princess got all worried, thinking something bad was coming. She remembered her gut feeling from before, and now she thought the 1st and 2nd princesses were about to get wrecked. Bro, she even had this scary thought about blood raining down on the palace. Yikes. After that, the story jumped to the tournament arena, where our hero showed up for the big fighting prelims. He dropped the disguise and went full power, hood up, face serious, and Krim, still riding shotgun on his shoulder. He sent some poor dude flying with one punch, and another guy was already down for the count. And just like that, the preliminaries were over, and the match leader asked the 4 winners to leave. The crowd was absolutely losing their minds. One person wondered who this squinty-eyed guy was, and if he was some underworld gangster. Another pointed out how weird it was that Krim the Crow never fell off Crash's shoulder, even when things got crazy. Anyway, Cicely and her aide showed up in the crowd again, watching Crash. She kept messing with him, asking questions and digging for info, and our hero was just thinking that this girl was way too good at squeezing secrets out of people. He was annoyed, but at least she hadn't messed up his chances in the prelims. The rules were simple. You had to be one of the last 4 people standing out of 100. But our MC thought all the opponents were weak anyway. It was natural for him to win when the gap was this big. On the way home, out of nowhere, this big bandaged man walked over with a creepy smile. He started talking about how Crash looked just like the rumors, especially with that suspicious crow on his shoulder. He asked if our boy was from the famous Night Raven family of assassins. Crash was like, Night Raven? Bro looked confused. Well, Night Raven was this super scary assassin gang from outside the Empire, and everyone in the underworld feared them. They even helped take down the Empire in the future. Crash admitted to himself that, as a regressor from Valheim, he didn't know everything about the Empire, but he'd never heard of Night Raven joining the Academy. Then, our hero told the bandaged man he was mistaken. He wasn't Night Raven. The bandaged man backed off fast, acting like he didn't want any trouble, and said he just wanted to get along as fellow underworld bros. Crash, trying to play it cool, just went with it. Meanwhile, his opponent gave a super awkward smile, said he doesn't know who is behind him anyway, then he walked off but called him Night Raven anyway. Our boy wondered why the dude looked so scared and asked if something was wrong. Then Krim, the crow, decided to jump in. He flew right at the bandaged man and said he'd give him a hand. The bandaged man barely had time to react before he started shaking like crazy, red energy shooting all over him. Bro looked like he was getting fried from the inside. Meanwhile, Crash just watched, chill as ever, and asked what Krim had done. The bird said it was just some simple brainwashing magic. Our MC smiled and said he was pretty useful, but Krim said he'd only do it once. With the bandaged man now looking empty and brain-dead, Crash knelt down to question him. He asked what happened to Night Raven. The poor guy answered like a zombie that Night Raven had almost been wiped out recently. Crash was shocking. Destruction? But he thought Night Raven was also in the tournament right now. Then, the bandaged man explained that they were only here because their new master forced them and drove them to destruction. When our boy asked who the new master was, he finally said it. The second prince of the Ephania Empire. That hit our MC like a truck. The second prince? He's a brother of Sigrun and Cicely's who really loves to eat until his body gets too big. Crash looked at Krim, worried. The bird asked if something was wrong, but our boy was lost in thought, thinking about how Night Raven was actually a puppet used by the Imperial family to keep an eye on the nobles. Besides, the Imperial family was the master from the start, so calling him a new master is strange. That connection was a huge secret, supposed to stay hidden until the very end. And now that even a low-level goon like the bandaged man knew the second prince was calling the shots, he figured someone was using the prince and spreading rumors on purpose. Then it hit him. Originally, the second prince's job was to boost the first prince's power, but now it looked like someone wanted to take out the second prince first, which would actually weaken the first prince instead. So, who would even benefit from all this backstabbing? That's when he realized this could all be Sigrun's plan. She might have gotten future memories from Arthur and was now moving to take everyone else down. If that was true, her first target would be the one who committed suicide after hiding the symbol of the Emperor, the White Dragon Pearl, and the one who made Arthur an emperor in name only, and that person must be the fourth princess, Cicely Ephania. To ensure that she can hand over the throne she obtained to Arthur, she will try to eliminate the troublesome Cicely first. Crash thought, if Sigrun became emperor, the whole empire would crash and burn, and that would just open the floodgates for even worse things to come. Our MC got fired up, thinking he had to mess up Sigrun's plan to save the world. He told himself he'd have to steal her special power, even if it meant getting into a fight with a future emperor. He looked at Krim and asked for help, and he agreed, but only this one time. Our boy got ready for the real battle, dark energy swirling around his hand. He wondered what to do with the bandaged man, and Krim just said to leave him. He'd already done his job. Now, our hero thought he might as well make the bandaged man his minion, for now. Krim reached out with his power and told the guy to go back to where he belonged. After the bandaged man walked away, the bird asked our hero what they have to do after this. Crash said that the time has come to use their appearance. In this form, let's find the real Night Raven hiding in the finals. Later, our hero was back underground, ditching the disguise and going full true self mode. He sat in a hidden room filled with old books, plotting his next move. He decided it was finally time to track down the real Night Raven member in the finals. Then, in a dark and creepy room, Crash finally came face to face with someone new. Another masked hooded figure stood across from him, white hair poking out. This new Night Raven member looked down and asked him if he realized his name was actually Crod. The dude was ticked that Crash had been pretending to be him. With red eyes blazing and dark energy swirling everywhere, the real Night Raven guy said he was going to teach our poor MC a lesson. The next day, our hero was in the tournament arena, and things were about to get wild. The giant screen said it was time for the main bracket, round of 32. Our MC was rocking this super dark cloak, and right now, he was wrestling with this huge, muscle-head dude. And get this, on Crash's shoulder, a crow, just chilling on his head like it owned the place. The muscle guy was getting totally destroyed. Suddenly, a wave of crazy energy burst out from Crash, and the big guy hit the floor, out of the match for good, and the committee announced that the winner of the 30-second match is Crad. The crowd? Bro, they went nuts. Everyone kept yelling Night Crow, like they were all obsessed with this mysterious hero. Now, our hero gave a little smirk, all cool, while his crow friend, Krim, sat on his shoulder. Then someone in the crowd started yelling, saying they'd been bored until Crash showed up and made things interesting. Our boy thought to himself that everyone really believed he was the real Night Crow, but he was waiting. He wanted the actual Night Crow to appear already. While the fans lost their minds cheering for Night Crow, he spotted a girl in the stands. Her name was Cicely. He was a bit surprised that she came to watch the match, even after he warned her not to. The crowd just kept screaming Night Crow like a bunch of superfans. A little title popped up, saying it was the night the preliminaries ended. Later, in his room, Crash was just trying to chill when Cicely, now in a simple nightgown, showed up all happy and playful. She called out his name and told him she heard he won the prelims with a huge win. Then she got all serious, saying she always knew he wasn't just a normal kid. He looked at her like, what is she talking about? She asked what was up with that look on his face, but he just acted annoyed and said it was nothing. Then, Cicely leaned in, being super nosy. She said Crash had to have lived a weird life and something must have happened to him. Our boy didn't really want to talk, but finally told her to look after herself. He said the main bracket was starting tomorrow and he was going to sleep. She just watched him go, looking thoughtful and probably a little worried. Somewhere else, in the Imperial Palace, the fourth princess was on a balcony with her aide, Sarah. The princess was worried about whether their imperial spy could be trusted. Then she promised to double-check. Our boy thought to himself that Cicely must have figured out some other plan and noticed Sigrun's plan, since she stayed in town even after being warned. Back in her room, the fourth princess was grinning and saying that Night Crow was a cool name. Crash was already leaving, telling his crow buddy it was time to go. He thought to himself, wondering if Cicely already knew he was just pretending to be Night Crow. Later that night, in a dark, creepy alley, our boy was walking alone when someone called out to him. Ahead of him stood a hooded figure with white hair, a real Night Raven member, eyes glowing bright red, and a crow on his shoulder. This dude asked Crash if he was having fun pretending to be the Night Crow. Our boy was a bit freaked, getting a flash of this scary bandaged man in his head. He realized who this was and couldn't believe this enemy showed up so soon, but he tried to play it cool, smirking, and saying he didn't expect to meet so quickly. Then boom, the Night Raven dude lunged at him with two super sharp blades. The guy was fast, but our boy dodged and blocked the attacks, the blades leaving streaks of light in the dark. He noticed his enemy was using dual blades and tried to figure out his moves, thinking he'd be fine if he could just catch him. Suddenly, the Night Raven member's arms lit up with evil red power, and he came at Crash like a wild animal, yelling that this was the end for him. The blades slashed and blood went flying. But get this, our boy's eyes flashed a crazy black and purple, and even with the blood, he was totally fine. Not even scratched, bro. The enemy was shocked, and Crash told him it was useless, that dark arts, powered by world erosion, didn't work on him. In his thoughts, he even remembered the real name of this enemy, Evelask. Now, Evelask was freaking out, blood on his lips, eyes huge with panic. He wondered how Crash knew his true identity. Crash just stood there, impossible to read, and told her that Sigrun was holding his heart hostage. He demanded to know where Sigrun was, saying he had something to discuss. But she was totally lost, stuttering and looking all kinds of confused. Our boy showed a dark energy bubble, making it clear he wanted to make a deal. He offered to use his skill to get her heart back, but in exchange, he wanted to know everything about Sigrun's plan. Here's the twist. Everyone thought she was the legendary Night Crow, the world's only necromancer. They called her Evelask Benapochi, a world eroder, who got her heart stolen and was held captive for 1,000 years. Dude, 1,000 years. That's insane. Then, she just screamed in terror. Our hero thought to himself that her fate was even worse than his. There was a flashback. Back in the day, this guy Arthur brought Evelask to the squad, thinking she might be useful. But the rest of the heroes didn't really care about her at all. As a kid, Crash had always hated how she just hid away in her tent, acting all superior. He'd only heard she was a necromancer, not that she was the legendary Night Crow. Looking back, he realized it made sense. If assassins were corpses, nobody could get information from them, and a necromancer could control the dead. Crows swarming over bodies, a whole family of master assassins, it all pointed to her. Still, our boy never knew her true identity before. The Night Crow disappeared while he was at the academy, so he guessed maybe Arthur captured her. Right then, Krim, the crow, teased Crash for being so kind today. He told Crash that Evelask would totally walk all over him if he let her. The girl, chained up and crying, flinched as our hero came closer. She was a mess, screaming and asking what he was doing and saying he promised to find her heart. Yeah, our boy was all business. He told her to raise her head, then said he wanted her to watch what he could do. He held up his hand, purple energy swirling around it, and announced he was going for her stolen heart with his skill called Black Hood. There were so many locks and chains on her heart, though. He knew it'd be hard to get it back with all those conditions. He told Evelask that if she gave him permission, he could take her heart back right now. Then, she was desperate, giving permission. But Crash told her to really mean it, not just say the words. She got frustrated, yelling that she was being serious. Our hero smirked and told her to imagine her real wish. She got frustrated, yelling that she was being serious. Our hero smirked and told her to imagine her real wish. He said that if she got her heart back, she could just live in comfort, eat what she liked, and play all day. But if not, she'd be nothing but a puppet, forced to work for the imperial family forever. That idea freaked her out. She started screaming she didn't want to work anymore, red energy swirling all over her. In her head, she realized this was real necromancer power. Our poor girl had already worked 1,000 years and was just done with it all. Then, she begged Crash to save her. Crash told her straight, if she never wanted to work again, she had to trust him with her heart. Evelask's desperation turned into fierce determination. She shouted that she didn't want that old heart anyway. She wanted more. She was ready to give it to Crash as long as he would set her free. But Crash said it wasn't time just yet. Evelask asked why, saying she really meant it this time. His hand glowed brighter, chains floating around it. He told her to offer her heart with her true wish from deep inside. Then he reached out and put his hand gently on her head. The poor girl looked up at him, scared but hopeful. She begged him, crying and shaking, that she just wanted a fun life, playing every day, never working again. Finally, she screamed for him to take her heart. Crash smiled, proud of her for finally saying what she wanted. Purple energy swirled everywhere as he told her she had done well. He said that now she was finally free. Man, RMC is a real boss, cutting deals, saving broken souls, and not letting anyone mess with him. Evelask, she was finally getting her chance to live. Then she looked up, totally stunned, while the chains started breaking and fading away. She tried to say something. She demanded he hurry and take back his heart. But our boy told her to keep his promise first, since this was a deal. He said he'd give her heart back when everything was finished. Then, another flashback hit. Evelask, just looking miserable, with her glasses all crooked, was sitting on the ground crying, while young Crash stood over her, getting annoyed. She kept complaining she didn't want to work, and our boy snapped at her to stop crying already. He wanted answers, so he asked what Sigrun was plotting. Next, the story jumped to the Imperial Palace grounds. Sarah Federa, the fourth princess's master swordsman, was there, sword glowing with blue energy. Evelask's voice explained. She'd been told to take care of Sarah and to use her corpse to kill Cicely, and she's going to do that. Yeah, you heard that right, total necromancer stuff. The scene got bloody. Sarah looked terrified as she got stabbed right through the chest with some freaky weapon, blood everywhere. She told her it was good to die for the Empire, like she really believed it, and even called her Sira, the Mad Sword. Then, there was this big guy, either Evelask or one of her undead minions, standing over Sira's dead body, holding a spear. That wasn't all, because this huge, ape-looking monster with a spear was standing next to her too. She told him that this is an order from Lord Sigrun, and they had to manipulate Sarah's corpse and kill Cicely. Then, the story zoomed out to show a full moon, and it was 1 year since returning to the past. Sigrun's voice came in, acting all dramatic, asking if Lord Arthur was watching and saying that they were doing their best, and said that she missed him. Then, boom, another flashback. One day just before the destruction, in front of a fancy building on a sunny day, just before the world got wrecked, 3 ladies, Abella, Mary, Diana, and Evelask, were waiting to meet someone named Lord Arthur. The girl was so hyped, heart-pounding, ready for Arthur to show up, but he never came. Evelask looked heartbroken, asking why, and Abella was confused too, wondering if anyone could even see Lord Arthur. Later that night, Evelask was standing alone on a busy street, staring up at the moon, looking super sad. It's been a year since she started waiting for Lord Arthur. She gripped her spear and told herself she had to believe in Lord Arthur and wait for him, just like Sigrun said. She promised to become the strongest spear before Arthur returned, saying she'd work hard and succeed in her mission. Then, things got wild again. Some giant ape monster was grabbing a guard, and he told Evelask to wait a second. Then he asked if the boy with the raven, who was in the martial arts tournament this time, was her corpse. Then she said yes. Evelask said Crash had good style, putting a raven on his shoulder to get attention, but then warned him not to try anything crazy just because Sigrun wasn't around, and reminded him she was holding his heart. You could see the big guy's face go from surprised to totally done with everything. She bowed and excused herself, walking away with a corpse in his shoulder. As he walked, her thoughts got super dark. She was annoyed that our hero only collected weird corpses, but realized he had been hiding someone like Claude. Too bad Claude was just another corpse to her now, and that made her pretty upset. Then, the scene switched to the tournament arena, packed with fans. Our hero was there, but this time in disguise as Claude, holding his sword and looking like he owned the place. Across from him stood Pilly, a 14-year-old kid from the provinces, looking determined, but honestly, just kind of ordinary. But, surprise, Pilly was actually crazy strong, part of the Azure generation, and had made it big at the academy. The crowd couldn't believe it when our boy drew his sword. The opponent charged in, sword blazing with blue energy, and Crash met him head-on. Anyway, while they were almost in time to fight, Crash, Claude, started talking about the academy, saying neither of them really needed to do assassinations anymore, since they both had a spot there. He told our boy that they have reached the finals, so they are guaranteed admission. Also, he could quit being a night raven and live a normal life. Pilly, not backing down, told Crash to stop the killings right now, saying nothing had changed. Then, our boy threw out a warning, telling him that if he had too much hope, he'd break when things got bad. Pilly didn't take it well, looking absolutely terrified, like he'd seen a ghost. The referee finally started the match, and Pilly used a super fast movement technique, 10-league step, to keep up with the fight. He just kept coming, trying to break Crash's defense. Crash kept dodging and blocking every single move, moving like a shadow. The opponent started freaking out, thinking Crash was like a ghost, slipping away from every attack. Just right then, our hero just kept analyzing his opponent's moves, telling him he knew all his tricks, his feints, even the ultimate move. He actually understood him better than Pilly knew himself. Dude, talk about savage. Pilly was coughing and getting frustrated, swinging his sword but never landing a hit. Crash broke down how his icy hometown helped him create his movement skill, 10-league step, and said he put in a ton of work to get this strong. But Crash had seen it all, and now he was the one in control. Then he told him to get stronger, so that even if his home got destroyed, he could still give hope to someone else. Then, he wrapped up the fight with a slick move, knocking Pilly back as the announcer yelled that Claude was the winner. The crowd lost their minds. After the match, Pilly, looking all gloomy in his hooded cloak, walked away and wondered if he'd ever see Claude again. There was a flashback to when they were both younger. Pilly smiled at Crash and thanked him. There was a flashback to when they were both younger. Pilly smiled at Crash and thanked him, saying he'd work even harder for the world's sake. Crash remembered how weird it felt to be thanked. Nobody had ever said that to him before. Back in the present, Crash Claude stood in the quiet arena with his crow buddy Crim, thinking about the academy. He looked at his opponent on the ground and told himself they'd meet again there. In the audience, Siphon Ephania, the second prince, was grinning like crazy, super impressed by the Night Raven's win. He sat on his fancy throne, looking all smug, while Evelask knelt before him like a loyal dog. He bragged that with the Night Raven on his side, getting the throne would be easy. Evelask just kept her head down, saying it was an honor, but you could see she was totally miserable. Meanwhile, the second prince acted so cocky, he said that she must keep her head down, because he held her heart, so she must continue to be obedient like a loyal dog. What a shame. Then, out of nowhere, the Imperial grounds blew up with chaos. A mustached guard was attacked, red energy flying as he screamed for help, yelling that the second prince was there. More guards got wrecked, and Siphon started freaking out. That's when a giant black dragon knight, dressed in insane dragon armor, appeared and declared Siphon under arrest for murdering the fourth princess, Cicely Ephania. He lost his mind and asked why he wanted to kill an idiot like Cicely. But then, the girl on duty added that at the Raven's hideout, an order for assassination of the Highness, the fourth princess, issued by him, was discovered. Hearing that, he's going crazy and yelling that he never did anything like that. He demands Evelask kill everyone who tried to arrest him. But Evelask looked totally confused and scared, asking who was even murdered. The girl of Black Dragon Knight recognized the voice. But then the real Sarah popped up, totally alive, smiling, and holding her sword. She even joked about not being killed or turned into an assassin. Cicely Ephania showed up next, looking smug, as always. Evelask was panicking, realizing Sarah was alive and Cicely was fine. So, something was super off. In her head, she thought it was weird, since someone definitely said there was a murder. Sarah, looking completely freaked out now, yelled about her own body, finally realizing things had gotten so messed up that even she couldn't figure out what was real.